Chapter 52. To attend the ceremony. The peak that Xue Jianfeng was at was a new force in the outer sect of Cloud Rain sect. Putting aside Xue Jianfeng, who was publicly acknowledged as the #1 genius in the outer sect, in the previous outer sect disciple ranking competition, that peak even took 5 of the top 10 spots. It was no small matter. It was the true #1 peak in the outer sect. Like a lone peak. Let's go to the so-called #1 peak in the outer sect to take a look. It's not a bad thing. I also want to see for myself how powerful the outer sect disciples on that peak are. Xiaofan temporarily put aside his grudge with Xue Jianfeng. His expression relaxed and he became relaxed. Xiaofan followed the 3 managers to the foot of the mountain. At this moment, there were already dozens of outer sect disciples gathered there, chatting in groups of 3 to 5. Today, Xue Jianfeng is going to be engaged to a female outer sect disciple of the Medicine King Valley. Sigh, I'm so envious of him. This is a great blessing. Forget it, there's no point in being envious. People like Xue Jianfeng are born winners. Not only is his cultivation extraordinary, he is also favored by the Medicine King Valley. People like him will ascend to the true Qi realm sooner or later. Sigh, once he reaches the true energy stage, the gap between us and him will be like the distance between the heavens and the earth. The difference in our levels of life will be like the difference between heaven and earth. Jealousy. Jealousy. I'm jealous. I can't wait for this marriage to fall through. Xue Jianfeng is always cold like the king of heaven. I've long found him an eyesore. Shut up. Don't talk nonsense. Such words are disgraceful. If word gets out, you'll die without a burial place. Cough cough. One of the managers coughed loudly. The outer sect disciples who were gossiping kept quiet and said obediently. Greetings, 3 managers. Greetings, senior brother Xiaofan. Now, Xiaofan had indeed gained the recognition and respect of this peak. Is everyone here? A supervisor nodded his head in a dignified manner and immediately asked. Alright, let's go to the ceremony together. Remember, when you're in someone else's territory, be careful what you say. Don't speak nonsense. Today is Xue Jianfeng's joyous occasion. I also know that all of you harbor great jealousy in your hearts, but you absolutely must not say it out loud. It's best to say a few words of congratulations. Even if it's an act, you guys have to act well for me. Ha! This manager is an interesting person. Xiaofan laughed involuntarily. As a matter of fact, Xiaofan also knew that the 3 managers were extremely disgusted by Xue Jianfeng's wedding. However, he had no choice but to say a few dry words of congratulations. After everything was settled, the 3 managers took the lead and led Xiaofan and a large group of outer court disciples towards the mountain peak where Xue Jianfeng resided. Everyone's physical bodies were extremely strong. As they walked, the wind whistled. They strode like shooting stars, crossing mountains and rivers as if they were walking on flat ground. Not long after, they arrived at the foot of a verdant mountain peak. Xiaofan took a look. This mountain peak was extremely steep and majestic. It towered majestically, white clouds drifting about the mountainside, immortal energy rising. At this moment, there were many people coming up the mountain in an endless stream. At the foot of the mountain, there were a few young disciples wearing outer court uniforms in charge of receiving them. These young disciples all had an armband embroidered on the right arm of their robes. The words "First Peak of the Outer Court" were clearly written on the armband. Their expressions revealed a strong sense of superiority. They were high-spirited and dazzling. Moreover, their faces were filled with a joyous red glow. The disciples of this peak really know how to act. Xiaofan only sneered in his heart. The 3 managers brought Xiaofan and the others over. The disciple in charge of receiving the disciples of this peak did not seem to take them seriously and said casually. Oh, the managers have brought the disciples here? Welcome. You are most welcome. Today is my senior brother Xue's joyous occasion. Thank you all for coming to attend the ceremony. Please go up the mountain. Please forgive us if we are disrespectful. After saying that, the disciples no longer paid attention to Xiaofan and the others. It was obvious that they were careless and half-hearted. The faces of the three managers immediately turned gloomy, but they did not flare up. One of the managers said indifferently, "Good, good. The first peak of the outer court is indeed awe-inspiring. Even the disciple in charge of receiving the disciples is so arrogant. Very good. Let's go." The group directly went up the mountain. Along the way, Xiaofan saw that the trees on both sides of the mountain path were covered with ribbons, red silk, and red lanterns. It was simply decorated with a joyous and auspicious atmosphere. They really are having a joyous occasion. Xiaofan licked his lips. At the peak of the mountain, the huge white jade square was already crowded with people. In the middle of the white jade square, a temporary high platform was built. A red carpet was laid out, lanterns were decorated, and a row of armchairs was placed on the platform. At this moment, it was empty. No one sat on it. With the temporary high platform as the center, there were a total of 11 square formations in all directions. In each of the square formations, tables and chairs were arranged in an orderly manner. In one of the square formations, there were many people. There were at least 1,000 people. On the right arm of their robes, the words "First Peak of the Outer Court" were written. They were all gathered together in a joyous atmosphere. Between their brows, there was pride and superiority. This was the square formation of the host. The remaining 10 square formations, in each square formation, there were only a few dozen people. There was another square formation, but it was empty. Let's go. Our seats are over there. The three managers brought Xiaofan and the others to the empty square formation. The host did not come to receive them. They found their own seats and sat down. Xiaofan sat beside the three managers. "Xiaofan, look. There are many people here today, right? Of the 11 square formations, 10 of them are the positions of our outer court's 10 peaks. The last one is an inner sect disciple that was invited." One of the managers introduced to Xiaofan. Xiaofan focused his eyes on the square formation where the inner sect disciples were seated. That square formation had the least number of people. There were only a few dozen people. He could see that the dozen people were all heroic and had an extremely terrifying aura. Some of them had their eyes closed, some were drinking tea, some were standing proudly, some had an unruly aura, some were as fierce as ancient beasts. These dozen people all had an aura that did not lose to Huarong, who was killed by Xiaofan. They were all powerful people who were half a step away from true qi. TSK. The representatives from the inner sect are all experts who are half a step away from true qi. This Xue Jianfeng has quite a reputation. Xiaofan could not help but sigh. Yes, Xiaofan, you should know that Xue Jianfeng is the #1 genius of the outer court. He stands out from the crowd. Moreover, his sword Dao cultivation is superb. He has already touched the threshold of the 1 in 10,000 sword intent. Sooner or later, he will rise to become a great figure. Therefore, it is natural for the inner sect disciples to be on good terms with him. I even heard that Xue Jianfeng has a relationship with a few true Qi realm direct disciples. One of the managers said to Xiaofan. His expression was very sullen, but he quickly smiled and said, "However, Xiaofan, with someone like you on our peak, we will not be at the bottom of the outer court's 10 peaks. We three old things believe that your achievement in the Tao of Blade will not be lower than Xue Jianfeng's Tao of Sword. You'll make our peak proud." "I will do my best." Xiaofan nodded. Then, Xiaofan looked around and casually glanced at the square formation occupied by the 10 peaks of the outer sect. Xiaofan discovered that there were also some experts among the 10 peaks of the outer sect. Their auras were like wood and stone, unfathomable. Suddenly, Xiaofan saw that there were dozens of people sitting in one of the square formations of the outer sect. At this moment, all of them were staring at him with hatred. Xiaofan realized that he had seen a few of them before. They were the followers who were with Zheng Shan that day. However, no matter how he looked, Zheng Shan was not in that square formation. Heh! Zheng Shan, that bastard, is probably recuperating. Xiaofan smiled and touched his nose. Suddenly, an imposing young man stood up from the square formation, carrying a heavenly halberd on his back. He walked like a dragon and walked like a tiger, his eyes like a tiger and his eyes like an eagle. He actually walked directly towards Xiaofan. As this young man walked, sand and dust were floating in the air. His whole body was filled with sharp metal-age qi, stern and fierce. His face was covered with frost as he walked straight in front of Xiaofan. The 3 managers' faces turned cold. You are Xiaofan, right? The young man curled the corner of his mouth and showed a hint of disdain. I heard that you are very arrogant. You even dare to insult and provoke my junior brother Zheng Shan. Very good, very good. I also heard that you used to be a small fry, a living target. You had a fortuitous encounter and were promoted to the outer sect. Today is Xue Jianfeng's big day. It is not suitable to see blood. I will give him face and let you go. But, you are on your own. As soon as he finished speaking, the 3 managers' faces changed. They were so angry that they choked and could not speak. And the dozens of outer sect disciples on Xiaohan's peak all had blood rushing to their faces. They stared at the young man angrily. Only Xiaohan's expression did not change. His eyes were as deep as an ancient well. Xiaofan picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. Are you done? If you are done, get lost. I have a bad temper and I can't stand mad dogs barking in front of me. What? The young man was speechless. His face immediately turned the color of a pig's liver. His body trembled and a murderous aura gushed out. The 3 managers and the outer sect disciples behind Xiaofan were also shocked. They did not think that Xiaofan would be so domineering and domineering. The moment he opened his mouth, he would say such harsh words. From all directions, some people also turned their attention to him. Just as the young man was about to explode, suddenly, gongs and drums sounded. The music was so loud that the sky was filled with melodious music. A young man in a red robe, surrounded by a large group of people, walked over like the moon surrounded by stars. This young man was dressed very jubilantly. His forehead was full, his eyebrows were like swords, and his eyes were like the sea. From time to time, there would be sword chi surging in his eyes. As he walked, he gave off an arrogant aura. As soon as he appeared, he immediately became the focus of the crowd. Everyone's eyes turned to him. It was as if this person was born with the temperament of a leader. No matter where he appeared, he would be the center of attention. He was a person that was the center of attention. Xue Jianfeng. Xiaohan also swept his gaze over. The hatred in his heart immediately covered the sky and covered the earth. This high-spirited guy in front of him was the enemy who beat Xiaohan to death. This guy's aura is even stronger than when he appeared at the Stilt House. It seems that he had a great encounter. Xiaohan nodded slightly. They both cultivate the sword Dao, but Xue Jianfeng is more than a little stronger than Shengguan Yi from Mingjian Villa. This world was very big. There were as many martial artists as there were hairs on a cow. Every martial artist had their own encounter. Xiaohan unintentionally encountered a fortuitous encounter and changed his fate. However, Xiaohan believed that he was not the only one in this world who had a fortuitous encounter. This Xue Jianfeng in front of him must have had a great and secret fortuitous encounter. As soon as Xue Jianfeng appeared, the young man who had a fierce conflict with Xiaofan glared at Xiaofan and said while gritting his teeth. "I'll let you live for now. Come for it in the future." After saying that, he returned to his seat. "Xiaofan, this is Zhu Yu, who was ranked 14th in last year's outer court ranking competition. He specializes in using the square sky halberd. His halberd technique is big and agile, and he has a cruel nature. Once he attacks, he will cripple people. He's a ruthless person and he's very close to half-step true energy," one of the supervisors said in a low voice. "No matter. When I learn the Saber Dao, the first person I'll kill will be this person," Xiaofan said fiercely. The three supervisors were shocked when they heard that. While they were talking, Xiaofan suddenly felt as if his skin was being cut by two invisible sword rays. His entire body was cold, and his pores were open. He had goosebumps all over his body. Xiaofan raised his head and saw Xue Jianfeng walking towards him. "What? Xue Jianfeng is walking towards us?" The three supervisors were shocked. The focus of the crowd followed Xue Jianfeng's footsteps and finally landed on the area where Xiaofan was sitting. "Xiaofan." Xue Jianfeng walked directly in front of Xiaofan with his hands behind his back and looked at Xiaofan with a condescending gaze. Xiaofan immediately stood up as well. The two of them faced each other. The crowd immediately quietened down. Everyone was doubtful. Not bad. You really did have a fortuitous encounter. A living target, a lowly person like a dog, actually leaped to become an outer court disciple. Moreover, I heard that you've been in the limelight recently. You didn't even lose to Zheng Shan, Xue Jianfeng said indifferently. Heh. Xiaohan's heart was filled with killing intent. However, at this moment, he had experienced many life and death situations. He had long since obtained a transcendent state of mind that was as indifferent as water. His expression was as calm as water. "I, Xiaofan, can't be a living target for the rest of my life, right? The heavens are looking out for me and bestowed me with some fortuitous encounters." Xue Jianfeng nodded. "That's fine. From now on, you should focus on your cultivation. However, remember, don't be too ostentatious. The martial Dao still depends on talent. Fortuitous encounters are only a matter of time. No one can rely on fortuitous encounters to achieve everything. Geniuses are geniuses. Mud is mud. With a fortuitous encounter, mud can't help a wall. Alright, that's all I have to say. Take care." With that, Xue Jianfeng turned around and walked towards the high platform in the middle of the square. Suddenly, Xiaofan said in a clear voice. "Xue Jianfeng, you are an outer court disciple. Right now, I am also an outer court disciple. What right do you have to scold me? One day, I will, in front of tens of thousands of people, beat you up until your mother can't recognize you." Xue Jianfeng's shoulders twitched and his entire body froze. Chapter 53. The surroundings were dead silent. Out of the thousands of people present, none of them expected Xiaofan to talk back. A small fry who used to be a living target had entered the outer sect through a fortuitous encounter. Just because he was in the limelight, he dared to talk back to the number one genius of Cloud Rain sect, Xue Jianfeng. The most important thing was that this mountain peak was Xue Jianfeng's territory. Furthermore, today was Xue Jianfeng's wedding day. All the guests were here to congratulate him. Any inauspicious words would be considered a provocation. Xiaohan's words were like a reversal of the host and guest. He did not know what was good for him. He was courting death. Xue Jianfeng turned around slowly and looked at Xiaofan. Suddenly, with Xue Jianfeng's body as the center, the air rippled like water. In his eyes, faint golden sword chi surged, and a formless pressure enveloped Xiaofan through the air. "Oh! Xiaofan, you want to challenge me?" Xue Jianfeng's eyes were filled with anger and deep disdain. You dare to act so presumptuously on this mountain peak? At the next moment, thousands of sharp gazes locked onto Xiaofan from the host's camp. Every gaze was filled with a violent rage that could cut 1,000 pieces into pieces. It was as if they were real. The air was filled with a thick smell of gunpowder. The three managers of the mountain where Xue Jianfeng was at also walked out with cold expressions. They looked at Xiaofan sinisterly with killing intent brewing in their eyes. Under the layers of pressure, Xiaohan's expression was as calm as usual. He did not panic, or fear. One must know that a viscera refinement realm martial artist facing the pressure from Xue Jianfeng and almost all the disciples of this mountain might have a mental breakdown. He might even go berserk on the spot and turn into a lunatic. But Xiaofan was fearless. He was facing thousands of people alone and his expression did not change. Furthermore, those with discerning eyes could tell that Xiaohan's calm and composed demeanor could not be faked. It was also impossible for him to be putting up a front. This kid actually has the feeling that he still has energy to spare. Interesting. The inner sect disciples who were at half-step true chi also started to pay attention to Xiaofan. It seems like this little fellow who was born as a living target has an inextinguishable will and will. TSK, this kind of bearing is rare and commendable. An inner sanctum girl with half-step true chi smiled faintly. I'm starting to appreciate his talent a little. However, this was Xue Jianfeng's territory after all. Acting atrociously like this was not giving him any face at all. Now let's see how to deal with the aftermath. Don't worry, there won't be a fight. The people from the Valley of the Medicine Masters will be here soon, a burly inner disciple said with his arms folded. Naturally, Xiaofan wasn't forcing himself. Ever since the battle at Crouching Bull Mountain and the bloody battle at Demon Town, Xiaohan's spirit and aura had become extraordinary. The pressure before Xiaofan was nowhere near as great as the pressure he felt from the seemingly endless loose demons back in Fiend Town. That was the true meaning of life and death. The current situation was just a small matter. Alright, Xiaofan, enough is enough. The three leaders beside Xiaofan hurriedly gave Xiaofan a look. Although they were all extremely pleased that Xiaofan had talked back to Xue Jianfeng, they had no choice but to lower their heads and not push things too far. Thus, they stepped forward to persuade him. Some of the leaders from the other peaks also took the opportunity to act as peacemakers and tried to persuade Xiaofan to make peace. Alright. Stop making a ruckus. What a scandal. Jianfeng, today is your big day. Don't argue with this Xiaofan anymore. That's right, Jianfeng. Let's all take a step back in terms of words. Who's that? Xiaofan, right? Don't be so stubborn. It won't do you any good if you continue to argue. Don't make a mistake. I think you're someone who has had some fortuitous encounters, but you're too immature. Stubbornness won't last long. If you continue like this, you'll die sooner or later. Jianfeng, don't bother with such a small fry. Who are you? First in the outer sect. Half-step true chi. And you've mastered the rare sword will. A heavenly prodigy. What is he? He's just an ant. Alright. It's a big day. Let's just leave it like this. There's no need to let such a lowly thing affect our mood. One of the leaders beside Xue Jianfeng said. At this moment, Xiaofan suddenly sat down. Finally, Xue Jianfeng gave Xiaofan a deep look before turning around and walking towards the temporary high platform. Xiaofan, don't be impulsive. When the three managers saw Xiaofan sit down, they heaved a sigh of relief. To be honest, under the intimidating gazes of Xue Jianfeng and the thousands of disciples, the three managers were all flustered. It was also rare for Xiaofan to maintain such a calm demeanor. From this point, they were even more convinced that Xiaofan was a rare genius. Perhaps, he wouldn't be any worse than Xue Jianfeng. Xiaofan suddenly said in a low voice. 3 leaders, this disciple is not admitting defeat. This disciple doesn't dare to tarnish the prestige of our peak. It's just that this disciple doesn't want to fight a bitter battle with Xue Jianfeng. I don't want to be shaken to the core, I don't want to turn defeat into victory, I don't want to be entangled in a fight. This disciple only wants to make a deal with Xue Jianfeng in one go and directly cripple him. However, this disciple's current strength is not enough. Thus, this disciple is temporarily enduring. Hearing Xiaohan's words, the 3 leaders kept quiet out of fear. It turned out that Xiaofan wanted to instantly kill Xue Jianfeng. This kind of ambition made people raise their eyebrows. At this moment, one of the leaders from Xue Jianfeng's peak suddenly said in an indifferent tone. Brother Situ, Brother Zhou, Brother He, it was the 3 of you who deliberately instigated the disciples to come out and cause trouble, right? Ha ha ha. This little brother understands my 3 brothers' feelings very well. His 3 elder brothers were simply jealous. Ha ha ha. That's right. After so many years, my 3 brothers have been in charge of a peak in the outer sect. It's been a miserable time and the number of talents has withered. Now, seeing our peak flourishing like the sun in the sky, your hearts are going crazy with jealousy. That's why you painstakingly instigated that live target to cause trouble. Sigh, this little brother understands my 3 brothers' feelings very well. It's human nature. Ha ha ha. I'm afraid that even if my 3 brothers worked hard for a few more decades, they would still not be able to cultivate a genius like Jianfeng who could marry the daughter of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Ha ha ha. The daughter of the Valley of the Medicine Masters is a phoenix among men. Not just anyone can marry her. Ha 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 ha. The leader laughed mockingly, flicked his sleeve, and turned to leave. Humph. The faces of the 3 managers beside Xiaohan were flushed, but their eyes were filled with shame and grievance. They had no confidence to refute. Indeed, to be able to marry a female disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was a very glorious thing. They could use it to boast about it. The dozens of outer sect disciples of this peak all lowered their heads sullenly. Their self-esteem had been greatly insulted. Xiaohan said in a low voice. Leaders, let's not stay here and make a fool of ourselves. Let's just leave. However, as soon as the words left his mouth, a few outer disciples of this peak rushed up from the bottom of the mountain with flushed faces and yelled out loudly. They're here. The people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters are here. Brother Xue. 3 leaders. The people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters are here. They're about to go up the mountain. Just as he finished speaking, the sound of a musical instrument came from halfway up the mountain. It was a song to welcome the distinguished guests. The melody was joyous, and there was also a hint of melancholy, representing the love between a man and a woman. Ha ha ha, they're finally here. Everyone, let's see what the beauty from the Valley of the Medicine Masters looks like. The square immediately became lively. Everyone raised their heads in anticipation. The stiff atmosphere between Xiaohan and Xue Jianfeng just now was instantly dissipated. Ha ha ha, Jianfeng, they're here. Hurry up and welcome them. The 3 leaders of this peak, with flushed faces, tidied up their appearances and smiled at Xue Jianfeng. The usually cold and arrogant Xue Jianfeng, at this moment, had a rare flash of tenderness in his eyes. He tidied up his robe and strode forward to welcome them. He was truly an indescribably heroic young man, full of ambition and high spirits. Flushed with success, seeing a garden full of flowers in a day. Xue Jianfeng and the 3 leaders headed to the mountain pass. Thousands of pairs of eyes on the mountain peak swept over in unison. Even Xiaohan and the others, who were preparing to leave, craned their necks to look over. Not long after, a group of women walked up the mountain pass. At the head of the group were 3 middle-aged women, all dressed luxuriously, their auras smooth and flawless, without a speck of dust. Between their breaths, they revealed their extremely powerful physical body cultivation, half a step into the Qi stage. Their bodies exuded elegance and beauty, full of charm and charm. Although they were already in their 30s or 40s, they did indeed have a unique style, and the corners of their eyes were filled with a cold and inviolable arrogance. These were the three outer sect leaders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. The thousands of eyes on the mountain peak were fixed on these three leaders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, with only one thought in their minds: so beautiful. So elegant. The three of you, how have you been? Welcome, welcome, the three of you have graced this peak with your presence. The three leaders beside Xue Jianfeng beamed with delight, their faces full of pride as they repeatedly exchanged pleasantries with the three leaders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Xue Jianfeng also bowed in greeting. However, the three leaders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters looked a little unnatural, with a hint of awkwardness. Is Shirong here? Xue Jianfeng looked up and asked. His eyes flashed with eagerness. Jianfeng, how are you? You are becoming more and more handsome. Your level of cultivation is also improving day by day. One of the leaders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters smiled and nodded, but his eyes flashed apologetically. Just then, behind the three leaders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, two stunning young girls appeared. Of these two girls, one was dressed in white, the other in red. Their beauty was breathtaking. The young girl in red was 16 or 17 years old, in the prime of her youth, with a delicate oval face and shallow dimples. She was as beautiful as a jade carving. Like a pearl or jade. There was a hint of bookishness in her temperament, but also a hint of quick-witted playfulness. The young girl in white had black hair that flowed like a waterfall. She was 17 or 18 years old, her skin was as white as snow, and her temperament was even more extraordinary. Like a fairy descending from the heavens, she made people forget about their worries. These two young ladies were like they had walked out of a painting scroll. They were so beautiful that it was enough to make one's head spin. Everyone present stared with their eyes wide open. The jealousy in their hearts toward Xue Jianfeng surged like waves. In fact, everyone felt that, even with Xue Jianfeng's looks and talent, he was still not worthy of either of these two young girls. As for Xiaofan, at this time, he was also dumbstruck. His eyes were frozen and his mind exploded. No way. It's them? It turned out that these two young girls were Lan Shirong and Jing Yanxue, who had gone through life and death together with Xiaofan in the demon town. Sigh. Xiaofan, have you been bewitched? Forget it, don't be jealous. Otherwise, your heart will be enchanted. In the future, when your cultivation is successful, we will also think of a way to help you marry a female disciple of the Medicine King Valley. One of the managers patted Xiaohan's shoulder and said bitterly. At this moment, when Xue Jianfeng saw Lan Shirong and Jing Yanxue, he immediately showed an infatuated expression and said in a low voice. Shirong, since we parted at the Medicine King Valley a few months ago, every time I think of your peerless beauty and extraordinary beauty, I can't eat or sleep in peace. Sigh, the pain of yearning is really not something that outsiders can understand. Come, Shirong, come with me. Today is our big day. Xue Jianfeng did not care about the small details and confessed his love in front of her. Furthermore, his tone and actions were like a male master inviting a female master. Xue. Big brother Xue. Suddenly, a trace of panic and unhappiness flashed across Lan Shirong's eyes. She subconsciously took a step back. Jing Yanxue immediately held Lan Shirong's hand and said in a sweet voice. Manager, cough cough. The three managers of the Medicine King Valley all began to cough. Their expressions became more and more awkward. One of the managers seemed to have braced himself and stood in front of Lan Shirong and Jing Yanxue to block them. Then, he smiled and said. This. Jianfeng, my three old friends, about this matter. I was too rude. This marriage, we did not get Shirong's approval and unilaterally agreed to it. In the end, when we mentioned it to Shirong flatly refused. We are really sorry, we were too careless. Now, we have specially brought Shirong here to apologize, Lan Shirong suddenly said. Shui. Big brother Shui, you are a young hero with outstanding charm. I admit that I am not worthy of Big brother Shui. This time, I have specially come to ask Big brother Shui not to ask others to send gifts to me. I can't accept it. I also want to personally thank Big brother Shui for your kindness. With such a talent like Big brother Shui, in the future, there will be a woman who is thousands of times better than me who will marry Big brother Shui. Lan Shirong's words sounded polite, but the coldness and rejection contained within them was so cold that even a deaf person could hear it. Directly rejected. The thousands of people on the mountain peak were completely silent. At this moment, the beautiful and joyous decorations on the mountain peak had actually become a mockery. All the guests who came to watch the ceremony had also become a mockery. Shui Jianfeng himself was the biggest mockery. Shirong, you. Shui Jianfeng's face immediately turned red. Shui Jianfeng took a deep breath and his expression was gloomy. Shirong, do you mean that I am not worthy of you? My Cloud Rain sect is the #1 in the outer sect, half a step to the true Qi realm. With the sect's great nurturing, it is only a matter of time before you ascend to the true Qi realm. Are you saying that I am not worthy of you? Shui Jianfeng's tone was overbearing. There was already a hint of anger from his embarrassment. TCH, if you don't like me, then you don't like me. What's there to talk about whether you are worthy or not? My senior sister Shirong has never promised you anything. Jing Yanxue pouted and said with a glib tongue, someone is just thinking too much. What did you say? Shui Jianfeng said sternly. Enough, Jianfeng, Yanxue has always spoken like this. Even if you don't like it, don't be so fierce. The faces of the 3 leaders of the Valley of Medicine Masters stiffened and a flash of disappointment flashed across their eyes. They thought to themselves, this Shui Jianfeng was actually so ungentlemanly. Jianfeng, don't be rash. The 3 leaders beside Shui Jianfeng had an iron face. A slap in the face. At this moment, their cheeks were burning hot and painful. It was as if someone had slapped them hard on the face. Everything had been so grand, so many people had been invited, and so many people had been flaunted, but it had actually become a slap in the face. Sigh, my 3 old friends, Jianfeng, this matter, we are in the wrong. We are willing to bear all the losses, the 3 leaders of the Valley of Medicine Masters said apologetically. At this moment, Jing Yanxue's eyes lit up. She seemed to have discovered some peerless treasure among the thousands of people on the peak. Her face suddenly turned red, but she could not control herself. She actually pulled Lan Shirong's hand and walked straight to a certain square formation on the peak. Shirong, Yanxue, don't be presumptuous. Come back. All of you, come back. The 3 leaders of the Valley of Medicine Masters hurriedly reprimanded. But Jing Yanxue turned a deaf ear to them and only cared about holding Lan Shirong's hand. Her eyes were fixed on a certain person, and her expression was both excited and charming. At this moment, Xiaofan was shocked. Just now, his eyes met Jing Yanxue's. He knew that he had been discovered. Almost instinctively, Xiaofan immediately lowered his head and squeezed out, as if he wanted to escape. Jing Yanxue screamed. Uncle! Stop right there. The next moment, Lan Shirong also saw Xiaofan. She was wild with joy and also lost her composure and shouted. Uncle! So you are a disciple of the Cloud Rain sect. As soon as she shouted, she quickly covered her mouth and looked left and right, blushing shyly for her momentary loss of composure. Stop right there. Jing Yanxue and Lan Shirong rushed over, one on the left and one on the right, sandwiching Xiaofan in the middle. Xiaofan hurriedly used his hands to cover his face. You, did you get the wrong person? Uncle. Jing Yanxue's eyebrows arched and she pursed her lips into a smile. Stop pretending. Even if you turn into ashes, we will still recognize you. Uncle, you are so bad. You lied to us from the beginning, and now that we have caught you, you lied to us again. Lan Shirong pouted. Everyone's gaze shifted over. The thousands of people were all stunned. Xue Jianfeng, the leaders beside him and the 3 leaders of the Valley of Medicine Masters were also stunned. However, everyone noticed a problem. When the 2 girls faced Xue Jianfeng, their attitudes were cold, and Jing Yanxue even spoke sarcastically. But when the 2 girls faced Xiaofan, they were affectionate and gentle, with disdain in the corners of their mouths. What situation is this? The 3 leaders of the mountain peak where Xiaofan was at looked at each other. All right, stop fooling around. Xiaofan could not deny it and could only spread his hands. What a coincidence. Since you have already recognized me, I will not deny it. However, what happened that night, Shu, keep it a secret, keep it a secret. What? What happened that night? The thousands of people present heard it clearly. Pfft. Uncle, you took advantage of me, yet you are still hiding. We only asked about your background, yet you still kept your mouth shut, Jing Yanxue pouted. You took advantage of me and then ran away. Uncle, you are so bad. When did I take advantage of you? Xiaofan was a little flustered. Uncle, are you still not going to admit it? Jing Yanxue's eyes were filled with affection and her eyes were like water. She suddenly said in a low voice. You're taking advantage of me, you're taking advantage of me. Her voice was low and gentle. The advantage she was referring to was naturally the kiss she had given Xiaofan. But in the ears of others, the meaning changed. I understand. The 3 leaders of the mountain peak where Xiaofan was at suddenly nodded at the same time. I finally understand completely. I have already said that this child Xiaofan is a promising one. After eating his fill, he went far away, played along, got rid of that heartless thing. Amazing. Too amazing. I suddenly want to laugh. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. The 3 leaders looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. The grievances and depression in their hearts were all vented in their laughter. The dozens of outer sect disciples of this mountain peak also felt elated and their gazes swept across the entire crowd. They were simply too arrogant. Pfft. Still looking down on the people of our mountain peak, do you see what kind of person our senior brother Xiaofan is? What female disciples of the Medicine King Valley, they have long been taken by our senior brother Xiaofan. Shut up. Such vulgar words. A dog's mouth cannot spit out ivory. It should be said that the female disciples of the Medicine King Valley lost their chastity to our senior brother Xiaofan. But our senior brother Xiaofan pulled out his sword and left. Senior brother Xiaofan, from now on, I see you as my idol. The thousands of people present all looked at each other. Now, some things did not need to be said clearly, everyone was clear in their hearts. Although they did not want to believe it, the 2 female disciples of the Medicine King Valley had forgotten everything and grabbed Xiaofan, saying that they had been taken advantage of by Xiaofan that night. They had said it with their own mouths. Moreover, they had called him uncle left and right, so affectionate. Damn, uncle? So this Xiaofan kid likes to play this kind of game, really, perverted. One of the inner disciples of the half-step True Chi gritted his teeth and said. However, I really have to give it to this kid. The female disciples of the Medicine King Valley are the most difficult to get, but he actually got 2 of them at the same time, and it seems like he wants to disassociate himself from them. It was these 2 beauties who kept pestering him. I have to give it to him. I have to give it to him. I also have to give it to him. Another inner disciple of the half-step True Chi said. The eyes of the three leaders of the Medicine King Valley were wide open in shock, their brains completely cramping up. Roar! Suddenly, Xue Jianfeng let out a bestial roar, and the cuckoos and blood-weeping apes wailed in agony. They were so angry that they almost vomited blood, and without looking back, they ran down the mountain. Chapter 54. A happy occasion was actually made into such a mess. Moreover, the focus of the entire scene had completely shifted to Xiaofan's side. Everyone could see Lan Shirong and Jing Yanshue's eyes were full of affection, their voices were soft, and they were chatting with Xiaofan in private. It was extremely intimate. The three managers of Medicine King Valley finally came to their senses. Just now, Lan Shirong and Jing Yanshue had spoken indiscriminately. They were talking about what happened that night and kept saying that they were taken advantage of. How could this be tolerated? The rules and regulations of Medicine King Valley had always been very strict. They could not allow their disciples to mess around outside and ruin their reputation. Immediately, the three managers' faces were covered with frost. Their delicate bodies flashed and flashed to Xiaofan's side, blocking between Xiaofan and the two girls. They stared at Xiaofan with sharp eyes that could see through everything. What? Viscera refinement realm? One of the managers frowned and her eyes flashed with strong disdain. Then, she fiercely glared at Lan Shirong and Jing Yanshue and angrily shouted. Shirong, Yanshue, what nonsense are you two talking about here? Presumptuous. That night, what happened between you and this young man? Tell me everything in full detail. You can't hide anything. All right, senior sister, take them back and carefully interrogate them. Another manager signaled with his eyes, thinking, senior sister is too impetuous, asking about this matter in public. What if she finds out about some romantic affair? Wouldn't our Medicine King Valley's reputation go down the drain? Jing Yanshue said repeatedly. That night, he disguised himself as an uncle and wanted to steal my and senior sister Shirong's flood dragon horse. We caught him in the act, but the flood dragon horse was still stolen by him. Jing Yanshue said seriously without even blinking her eyes. Xiaofan thought, Miss Jing is so calm when lying. She really has a great future. Hearing Jing Yanshue's words, the three managers of Medicine King Valley all heaved a sigh of relief. So he only stole the horse. I thought. Forget it, Shirong, Yanshue, you two immediately return to Medicine King Valley with us. You are punished to refine 1,000 furnaces of pills and are not allowed to leave the valley for 2 years. One of the managers said sternly. Manager, don't. Jing Yanshue said with a pale face. Lan Shirong was calm. She just frowned slightly and did not say anything. Young man. At this time, one of the managers looked at Xiaofan with disdain and said deeply. The female disciples of Medicine King Valley are not to be pursued by just anyone. Even the number one genius of your Cloud Rain sect's outer sect, Xue Jianfeng, returned in failure. Shirong and Yanshue were among the female outer sect disciples of the Valley of Medicine Masters, with outstanding looks and natural beauties. Sect, we will not consider anyone below the True Chi realm. Young man, no matter what happened between you, Shirong and Yanshue, forget about it. Dragons don't live with snakes. Don't look for trouble and ask for trouble. Shirong and Yanshue are still young and inexperienced. They have just entered the Jianghu and haven't seen the world. That's why they are speaking to you slightly. In the future, you will be completely filtered out in their hearts. Xiao felt. Xiaohan frowned. Shut up. Another manager glared. His pressure made Jing Yanshue and Lan Shirong speechless. Shut up. The other manager glared at them, and his pressure enveloped them, causing Jing Yanshue and Lan Shirong to immediately shut their mouths. Shut up. Another manager glared. His aura shrouded Jing Yanxue and Lan Shirong. Let's go. The three Medicine King Valley managers were displeased. They were about to leave with Lan Shirong and Jing Yanxue. Suddenly. Wait. Xiaofan said loudly. What else do you want to say? One of the Medicine King Valley managers looked at Xiaofan impatiently. He looked like a king looking down at a beggar. It's nothing. The river flows east for 30 years, and the river flows west for 30 years. The vicissitudes of life are unpredictable. Don't bully a young man. True Qi realm, right? Good. One day, I, Xiaofan, will reach the True Qi realm. At that time, I will visit the Medicine King Valley personally. With that, Xiaofan looked deeply at Lan Shirong and Jing Yanxue. His determined eyes were filled with tenderness. Wait until you reach the True Qi realm. The three managers said perfunctorily. They did not believe that Xiaofan would reach the True Qi realm one day. If you really reach the True Qi realm, the three of us will welcome you at the Medicine King Valley. When the time comes, I'll pour you some tea and apologize. It's not impossible. But I'm afraid we won't be able to wait for that day. The difference between the physical body realm and the True Qi realm was like the distance between heaven and earth. It was not something that could be achieved easily. The three managers of the Medicine King Valley left with Lan Shirong and Jing Yanxue. Faintly, Xiaofan heard one of the managers say in a low voice, "Go back and check carefully. Ruoxi Rong and Yanshue's chastity has been destroyed. Immediately abolish their cultivation and expel them from the sect." Lan Shirong and Jing Yanxue looked back at Xiaofan with every step. Jing Yanxue, in particular, had tears in her eyes. Suddenly, she gathered her courage and said, "Uncle. Yanxue will wait for you at the Medicine King Valley." "I will definitely come," Xiaofan said seriously. After the two girls were taken away, Xiaofan quietly stood where he was without saying a word. At this time, the three managers of Xiaohan's peak hurriedly walked to Xiaohan's side and said in a low voice, "Xiaofan, let's also slip away. The people here seem to be very unfriendly towards us." Xiaohan's gaze swept around and saw the thousands of outer sect disciples of the host square formation. All of them had eyes like jackals and wolves, fiercely glaring at him. It was as if they wanted to immediately draw their blades and attack him. It seems that they are indeed not very friendly. Let's go, let's go. Xiaofan also realized that something was wrong. He thought to himself, I have made Xue Jianfeng's happy occasion into an embarrassing one. Why would they still be friendly towards me? Immediately, Xiaohan's group of people left in a hurry like sparks. They safely returned to the peak they were at. Phew. It was really dangerous just now. We were almost surrounded. One of the managers heaved a sigh of relief and immediately looked at Xiaofan with a smile. Xiaofan, you are very good. You have made us proud. He. Whenever I think of Xue Jianfeng and those three old men's pale faces, I feel extremely carefree and comfortable. Ha. However, don't take the words of those three women from Medicine King Valley to heart. Just focus on your cultivation. Those from Medicine King Valley are always like this, arrogant and condescending. No matter. Xiaofan said indifferently. Three managers, this disciple is now focused on cultivation. Nothing can erase this disciple's will. After reaching the true energy boundary, this disciple will personally go to Medicine King Valley and take back the dignity that I lost today. Good. Xiaofan, go back and wait for a few days. We will immediately ask for a blade manual and marrow refining pill for you. One of the managers nodded and said solemnly. Oh right, Xiaofan, don't wander around during this period of time. Today, you have completely fallen out with Xue Jianfeng. Not only did you steal his limelight, but you also made him lose face in public. That guy will definitely seek revenge. I am afraid that he will find trouble with you. This disciple understands. Xiaofan nodded slightly. Soon after, Xiaofan bid farewell to the three managers and returned to his own courtyard. In his room, Xiaofan sat cross-legged on his bed. In his mind, Lan Shirong and Jing Yanxue's smiles and frowns flashed past. Involuntarily, the corners of Xiaofan's mouth hooked into a faint and warm smile. Don't worry. I will definitely reach the true energy boundary and go to Medicine King Valley to look for you. Xiaofan said to himself. In the next moment, Xiaofan took out the bottle containing 20 leopard embryo marrow refining pills from his bosom. He opened the bottle stopper and poured out the pills one by one, placing them in his palm. Let's start refining the marrow. My current physical strength has reached 80 cauldrons, surpassing the average marrow refining martial artist. When I reach the complete marrow refining stage, how strong will my strength be? I am really looking forward to it. Xiaofan picked up a leopard embryo marrow refining pill and put it into his mouth, on the mountain peak where Xue Jianfeng was. Xue Jianfeng's courtyard. At this moment, in Xue Jianfeng's courtyard, the autumn wind was chilly and sword qi whistled. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive. The outside world was warm and sunny, but in Xue Jianfeng's courtyard, there could be thunder and lightning at any moment, as if the heavens were angry. In the room, Xue Jianfeng sat upright on a carved wooden chair, his face as gloomy as water. On his forehead, a vein protruded and trembled non-stop. 3 outer sect disciples in bright robes stood at the side with their hands at their sides, not even daring to breathe too loudly. The atmosphere in the room was extremely heavy, making people feel suffocated. Xiaofan. Suddenly, Xue Jianfeng let out a furious roar. In the next moment, bang! A flower vase on a red sandalwood shelf in the corner was cut into pieces by the invisible sword qi, the porcelain pieces flying in all directions. Pooh! 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 The invisible sword qi twisted chaotically, completely crushing the porcelain pieces into fine powder. They scattered on the ground. While doing all this, Xue Jianfeng did not move at all. His entire body's qi did not leak out in the slightest. No one knew how he broke the flower vase through the air. Senior brother, calm down. Senior brother, calm down. The 3 outer sect disciples were so frightened that they immediately knelt down. Senior brother, your sword intent has reached the small success stage. Using the air as a sword, killing through the air is like blowing dust. You really are a sword Dao genius. Senior brother, why don't we get rid of that Xiaofan for you? That bastard has gone too far, he must be put to death by 1,000 cuts to vent his anger. Yes, senior brother, let's make a move and cripple him. Humph. Xue Jianfeng stood up with his hands behind his back. The air around his body fluctuated, turning into invisible sword qi that seemed to be able to cut through the void. Go cripple that kid now. Everyone will know that it was me, Xue Jianfeng, who did it. This kind of dog-like small fry, I can kill him 1,000 times with just a glance. Yes, senior brother. Compared to you, that bastard is simply a pig, a dog, a cow, or a sheep. The 3 outer sect disciples said submissively. Forget it. Tomorrow, I will follow a few true disciples to the western region to kill demons, sharpen my spirit, and forcefully break through to the true qi realm. Xue Jianfeng said proudly. Breaking through to the true qi realm is of utmost importance. Moreover, going out for an adventure with the true disciples, there is a possibility of finding some ancient ruins and obtaining some heaven-defying fortuitous encounters. Xiaofan, that bastard, you guys help me keep a close eye on him. Monitor him well, but don't make a move. I will think of a way to slowly torture him. When the time comes, I will make him regret being born into this world. Chapter 55. After Xiaofan consumed a leopard embryo marrow cleansing pill, the pill turned into countless granules and adhered to his bones. It was very miraculous. Now let's see how well my bones can absorb these pill granules. This is the so-called root bone in the martial Tao. With a good innate root bone, the absorption is fast. Removing the impurities, the medicinal essence can seep into the bone marrow several times faster than normal people. If the root bone is bad, then there is no other way. One can only rely on hard work, practice hard day and night, and overdraft one's physical strength to speed up the absorption. Xiaofan was also clear. Not long after, Xiaofan swallowed a total of 20 leopard embryo marrow cleansing pills into his stomach. Countless granules covered a total of 80 of Xiaofan's bones. These 80 bones with medicinal essence attached to them feel numb. I can clearly feel traces of medicinal essence seeping into the bones. However, without a reference, I don't know how fast my bones absorb the medicinal essence. Is my root bone good or not? Forget it, don't think too deeply about this. Putting aside the root bone, I can't give up on hard work. There is still half a year before the outer sect disciple ranking competition. I must seize every moment to cultivate and not slack off. In terms of cultivation, I must put in more effort than anyone else. That way, I will be able to get a satisfactory return. For the next 3 days, Xiaofan was very low-key. He almost never left his house. His meals were all brought back by Ah Cho from the canteen. In Xiaofan's storage ring, there were a few sabers and even a saber manual. Thunder Crash Extermination Saber. This was obtained after killing Huarong. Xiaofan recalled Huarong's 1 man and 1 saber. He killed demons and devils in Willow Town. He was swift and decisive. His saber chi killed through the air as if he was taking something out of his pocket. Huarong's saber technique was also very impressive. Now that Xiaofan was determined to cultivate the saber Dao, he eagerly read the saber manual. After studying for half a day, Xiaofan had a basic understanding of this saber technique. The Thunder Crash Extermination Saber was the same as the Son of Heaven's Fist. To understand the essence of the saber force of the Thunder Crash Extermination Saber was actually very difficult. There was even the risk of death. The saber manual said that this saber technique had to be practiced when there was thunder and lightning. However, listening to the thunder, observing the lightning, and then practicing the saber could only be regarded as a beginner. To practice this saber technique to perfection, one must practice it in the midst of thunder and lightning. Their bodies must be in contact with the thunder and lightning, or even absorb the thunder and lightning into their bodies, using the thunder and lightning to temper the saber chi, and understanding the saber power in the thunder and lightning. Wouldn't he be struck to death if he guided the lightning into his body? Xiaofan laughed involuntarily. Although a normal physical body realm martial artist's body is tough and indestructible, it's impossible for them to let the lightning strike their body when there's a thunderbolt, right? If a bolt of lightning came down, he would probably be roasted to a crisp. Why the hell would I need to practice saber skills? No matter how strong a person's body is, it's impossible to contend against the supernatural power of nature, right? I reckon that Huarong has only seen the lightning and heard the thunder. He has only learned the basics. Xiaofan was certain of this point. Then, a thought flashed through his mind. I have the indestructible golden body to protect me. Can I try letting the lightning strike me? Let's see if it can kill me. If it can't kill me, then this saber technique will have reached perfection. But soon, Xiaofan temporarily gave up on this idea. After all, the 3 managers provided him with many saber manuals for him to choose from. There was no need to practice this thunderclap extermination saber technique. Putting down the saber manual, Xiaofan held a saber in his hand and walked around the courtyard, feeling the saber's concept. However, under the situation where he didn't use the Emperor's power, the connection between Xiaofan's mind and the saber in his hand wasn't very close, so he couldn't display the domineering saber power. On the contrary, once the Emperor's power was activated, in an instant, the saber chi surged, and the ordinary saber would seep out a sharp and murderous aura. 3 days passed. The 3 managers sent a message to Xiaofan, asking him to go to the mountain peak. At the mountain peak, White Jade Plaza. The 3 managers had been waiting for a long time. After seeing Xiaofan, they immediately went up to him and asked about his well-being. Xiaofan, after resting for a few days, your aura has become more stable. Have you started to refine your marrow? The manager with the surname, Situ, patted Xiaofan's shoulder and said. Yes, this disciple started refining his marrow 3 days ago. However, I don't have enough elixirs, and this disciple is a bit depressed. Xiaofan complained about being poor. It was unreasonable not to complain about being poor at this time. Xiaofan, you just entered the outer sect not long ago, so you definitely haven't saved up that many true martial coins. It's understandable that you are short of money. Another manager nodded and said. However, Xiaofan, we have reported your matter to the higher-ups. They also think that you are worth cultivating. You defeated Yang Lei and tied with Zheng Shan. The higher-ups have also completely grasped the matter, and they think that you are worth cultivating. This time, the higher-ups have specially given you something. Look, this is a bottle of 1,000-year black tortoise blood. After consuming it, the medicinal effect will spread to 150 bones. It is not a small matter, it is a sacred item for refining marrow. The manager solemnly took out a palm-sized jade-green medicine bottle from his bosom. Xiaofan, the sect is cultivating you. Yes. Xiaofan was extremely excited. The sacred medicine for refining marrow that covered 150 bones. Xiaofan had seen this 1,000-year black tortoise blood in an elixir store before. One bottle was worth 20,000 true martial coins. It was definitely not a small matter. Blessed by the heavens. The medicinal effect was even purer than the leopard embryo marrow cleansing pill. Xiaofan quickly took the medicine bottle and carefully placed it in his bosom. With this bottle of 1,000-year black tortoise blood and the medicinal effect of the 20 leopard embryo marrow cleansing pills, he would not have to worry about refining his marrow. The next thing to do was to train hard and even torture himself to overdraft his physical strength, so that his bones could absorb the medicinal effect to their heart's content. Xiaofan, next is to let you choose a saber manual. Manager Siddha smiled and said. Xiaofan, listen to me. Our Cloud Rain sect is actually not known for saber techniques. The Cloud Rain sect's ultimate technique is the Cloud Rain True Qi. With a flip of the hand, it can summon clouds and rain. It can stir the power of heaven and earth, overturn heaven and earth, and suppress all things. However, this divine technique can only be practiced after reaching the true Qi realm. It is impossible to reach the physical body realm. Among the 5 major sects of Beacon Fire Empire, Mingjian Villa has tens of thousands of sword manuals and 10 great sword techniques. Ba Huang Temple focuses on the saber. Their Ba Huang's 6 directions godly saber technique is well known in the world. Medicine King Valley's 10 great secret medicines are world-shocking. Blazing Flame sect's God Burning Palm is world-shattering. Then, the best saber technique in Beacon Fire Empire is in Ba Huang Temple? Xiaofan frowned. Theoretically, yes. A manager nodded seriously. However, our Cloud Rain sect's thousands of years of heritage is not to be underestimated. There are many saber manuals in the Martial Skill Pavilion. Of course, some saber manuals can only be practiced after reaching the true Qi realm. Then, the higher-ups will give you some saber manuals that are suitable for your current cultivation. You can take your time to choose. Oh right, Xiaofan, you cannot be greedy when practicing saber techniques. Biting off more than you can chew. Every saber technique contains a different intent realm. If a saber user were to practice too many saber techniques rashly, their intents would clash and they might even go berserk. Back then, there was a true Qi realm saber user of our Cloud Rain sect. He was extremely talented and had mastered 7 saber techniques. In the end, his body exploded and he died. Therefore, the higher-ups have stipulated that you can only choose one saber technique this time. Alright. I'll choose one. Xiaofan nodded his head heavily. The 3 managers each took out a few saber manuals and handed them to Xiaofan. Xiaofan, we won't disturb you. Calm down and choose. Yes. Xiaofan received the saber manuals and sat down cross-legged, flipping through them slowly. Hurricane Saber Technique. Swift Saber, 13 slashes in a single breath. It's extremely powerful when the enemy is forced to defend. Compassionate Saber Technique. Filled with compassion, the saber force is gentle like the spring breeze and rain. It can influence the enemy and subdue the enemy without a fight. Star Refining Demon Slaying Saber. Refined a different kind of starlight and infused it into the saber chi. It can destroy both ghosts and gods. Wood Burning Saber Technique. Born flames in the saber chi. Thunder Extermination Saber. Enhanced by lightning, sweeping everything. Blood Vengeance Saber. Extremely murderous aura. 3-step saber technique. Blood must be seen within 3 steps. If you don't kill the enemy, you kill yourself. Cold Moon Saber Technique. Feather Saber Technique. Mountain Saber Technique. 5 Elements Saber Technique. Yin Yang 4 Elephant Saber Technique. Shadow Saber Technique. There are too many saber manuals. My eyes are blurred from choosing. Xiaofan rubbed his eyes. The saber manuals in his hands each had their own strengths and weaknesses. Moreover, they all had different concepts. Xiaofan really couldn't choose at that moment. After choosing for a long time, there was only one saber manual left in Xiaofan's hands. The paper of this saber manual was yellow and wrinkled. It was wrinkled and dirty, emitting a foul smell. Xiaofan's heart skipped a beat. One should know that the 2 ultimate techniques that Xiaofan relied on the most, the indestructible golden body and the Son of Heaven's divine fist, were obtained from the tattered parchment. Therefore, Xiaofan had always been very interested in ancient martial technique manuals. Xiaofan was especially interested in the incomplete ones that no one cared about. On the title page of this saber manual, there were a few scribbled words. Saber Scripture. Xiaofan carefully flipped open the soft and fragile title page. After a brief reading, he understood. Strictly speaking, this saber scripture was not a saber manual, nor was it a martial technique manual. It was the notes of a saber user. It mainly explained some theoretical knowledge of the saber Tao. For example, what saber chi was, what saber force was, and even its own understanding of the saber intent that could only be understood but not explained. Xiaofan flipped through a few pages. He was already very careful, but one of the pages was still damaged. The paper was already rotten. Sigh. This thing is just a manual, a notebook. Although a lot of knowledge is helpful to the cultivation of the saber Tao and allows one to have a deeper understanding of the essence of the saber, it is after all not a saber manual. Moreover, it is too easy to break. I'm afraid that before I finish reading it, it will break into ashes after flipping through a few pages. However, just as Xiaofan was about to give up on this saber scripture, the strange thing that was dormant in his heart suddenly throbbed. What? Xiaofan's heart was shocked. Then, a crisp, crack sound burst out from his heart, like an eggshell breaking. It was a mysterious feeling of breaking free from the shackles and removing the seal. Not long after, Xiaofan's heart was beating at the same time, and heavenly music could be heard, strange phenomena, auspicious clouds, and heavenly flowers poured out from Xiaofan's heart. Of course, all these strange phenomena could only be seen by Xiaofan. Although the three managers were staring at Xiaofan, they could not detect anything strange at all. It was very strange. The next moment, the surface of the dilapidated, saber scripture actually glowed with a divine light. In an instant, countless divine talismans, rays of light, and dazzling lights completely enveloped Xiaofan. The current situation was exactly the same as when Xiaofan obtained the indestructible golden body and the Son of Heaven's divine fist. This time, Xiaofan had experience and did not appear to be so panicked. However, the ecstasy in his heart was already rolling like waves. The heavens have pity on me. It seems that I have picked up a treasure again. Ha ha ha. Impressively, on the title page of the broken saber scripture, a few big, shining words appeared. Every word, every stroke, seemed to contain an overwhelming saber intent. 7 fragment saber art. Good. This is it. Xiaohan's heart moved, and the strange phenomena in front of him temporarily disappeared. He stood up and said to the managers. All right, I have chosen. The 3 managers walked over with big steps. Xiaofan, which saber manual did you choose? The 3 managers asked in unison. I choose this saber scripture. Xiaofan forcefully suppressed the ecstasy in his heart and said calmly. What? Xiaofan, why did you choose this? This is not a saber manual, but a notebook written by a swordsman, one of the managers said doubtfully. This saber scripture only describes some of the more basic knowledge of the saber Tao. Xiaofan, even if you choose the saber scripture, you will not be able to cultivate any saber techniques. You should choose another one. There's no need. Masters, I've already chosen my disciple. Don't worry, I am not a rash person, Xiaofan said seriously. The 3 managers looked at each other and finally sighed, accepting Xiaohan's choice. They thought to themselves, geniuses are indeed unconventional and can't be measured by common sense. Ordinary people would never touch this saber scripture, but Xiaofan had chosen it. Moreover, it seemed that he treasured it very much. All right, Xiaofan, the elixirs and that saber manual, I will treat this saber scripture as a saber manual. You have chosen them. How are you going to cultivate? Are you going to go into seclusion or something? One of the managers asked. Xiaofan had obviously made up his mind. I am going to leave the outer sect area and find a quiet place to cultivate in seclusion. On one hand, I will train my marrow, and on the other hand, I will comprehend the saber Tao. Oh, where are you going to cultivate in seclusion? One of the managers could not help but ask. I am sorry, managers. I will keep the place a secret for now. I will not tell anyone, Xiaofan said apologetically. All right. The 3 managers did not mind. Then go into seclusion and cultivate in seclusion. But don't forget to come back on time for the outer sect ranking competition in half a year. At that time, without you, our peak will lose a lot of its luster. Chapter 56. Before this, Xiaofan had already chosen a place for his seclusion. It was not in the outer sect. Of course, it was not outside of the mountain range. One had to know that the mountain range was thousands of miles wide, and there were many spirit mountains and immortal lands. However, in the huge mountain range, there were also some peaks that were uninhabited, and it was full of barren hills and unruly rivers. Some of the river valleys even had primitive aborigines that lived there, forming their own tribes. There were also primitive forests that were overgrown. Some forests had fallen leaves, and after years of miasma, poisonous fog that could not be seen. If one accidentally entered, he would definitely die. Back when Xiaofan was a live target, he had gone to a peak at the edge of the mountain range. At the peak of this mountain, there was a huge waterfall that flowed down like a huge white dragon and into a river. The river flowed like a mountain torrent, and it rumbled all day long like a world-ending thunder. At that time, Xiaofan was on this mountain peak and felt the entire mountain tremble. Thus, he fled in fear and did not dare to stay for long. But now, he suddenly had the idea to go into seclusion on this mountain peak. There's still half a year before the outer sect disciple ranking competition. It's imminent. Under the situation where I can't use the demon the Archpalm, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to defeat Xue Jianfeng. Time doesn't wait for me. I have to go all out. I'll cultivate in the waterfall and destroy myself in the hopes that I can quickly digest the medicinal essence in my body and fuse it into my bones. Xiaofan returned to his room and sat cross-legged on the bed, consuming the bottle of thousand-year mystic turtle blood. The majestic medicinal essence turned into granules and completely wrapped around the 150 bones in Xiaofan's body. However, the medicinal essence was too abundant. Even if his bones absorbed it for 3 to 5 years, it would not be completely absorbed. After drinking the medicine, Xiaofan went to the canteen alone and bought a large amount of dried meat, storing them in 2 storage rings. He then went back to take a few robes and left the outer sect peak silently. He did not even inform Ah Cho. "Senior brother Ah Cho, I'll be in seclusion for half a year. I hope that you can cultivate well in this half a year and strive to ascend to the marrow refinement realm and master the deadwood collection." Once everything was prepared, Xiaofan traversed the mountains and headed towards the mountain peak he had chosen for seclusion. Now, Xiaofan's physical body was strong, and he could walk as if he was flying. He could climb mountains and cross rivers as if he was walking on flat ground. After a few hours, Xiaofan arrived at the mountain peak. Hong hong hong, the roar of the mountain torrent and the rumbling of the waterfall shook the mountain to the point that it rustled and trembled, and the entire mountain actually had a terrifying feeling that it might disintegrate at any moment. However, the current Xiaofan was fearless in the face of such a dangerous environment. Xiaofan held a saber in his hand and chopped down some trees and vines in the forest. Behind a protruding rock, he hastily built a small thatched hut. Hee. For the next half a year, I will build a hut here and live like a primitive man. Xiaofan looked at the small thatched hut he had built with satisfaction. Xiaofan had stored a lot of dried meat slices and steamed buns in his storage ring. This mountain peak was lush with trees. There were also a large number of fruit trees. There were even wild hares, wild boars, and other wild animals. For Xiaofan, there was no shortage of food. In the evening, the night sky was clear. Xiaofan sat cross-legged on the rock in front of the thatched hut, a saber laid flat on his knees. In Xiaofan's hand, he held the tattered saber scripture with a pious expression. In an instant, waves of throbbing came from his heart. One after another, divine runes and rays of light swept out. Correspondingly, the rotten saber scripture in his hand glowed with misty divine light. Fishes and dragons spread out, and it was a spectacular sight. 7 fragment saber art, 4 words that contained profound concepts and sharp saber chi floated in the air. Not long after, the divine light and rays of light that filled the sky were woven into a mystical cocoon of light. This time, there were a total of 8 cocoons of light. Indestructible golden body, 100 cocoons of light. Son of Heaven's divine fist, 7 cocoons of light. And the 7 fragment saber art, 8 cocoons of light. Poof, the first cocoon of light shattered. Densely packed words exploded out. Xiaofan scanned it with his mind and immediately read it. 2 hours later, so it turns out that the first cocoon of light derived from the 7 fragment saber art isn't a saber technique, but some basic knowledge of the saber Dao. However, this knowledge is extremely precise, like the morning bell and evening drum, and it is thought-provoking. Saber Chi. Once the saber Chi is released, it can kill from a distance. What is saber Chi? Saber Chi is when a saber user reaches a certain level of strength and reaches a certain speed when brandishing the saber. Thus, the force of the saber will shoot out from the saber, destroying everything in its path and killing the opponent immediately. Normally, When a saber user at the fleshly body realm slashes out a saber chi from a distance, its strength is equivalent to 1/10 of the user's physical strength. However, the faster the saber speed, the greater the strength, the stronger the penetrating power, and the more terrifying the lethality. To successfully cultivate saber chi, two conditions must be met. First, one's physical strength must reach 50 cauldrons or above. Second, the speed of brandishing the saber must not be less than 1/10 of the speed of sound. Speed of sound. Theoretically speaking, in one breath, which is 1 second, if one can slash 340 times, it is the speed of sound. In other words, in order to slash out saber chi that can injure people from a distance, one must at least slash 34 times in 1 second. 34 slashes in one breath. This. Xiaofan felt a headache coming on. Difficult, somewhat difficult. I didn't expect the first step of cultivating the saber Dao, cultivating saber chi, to be so difficult. The saber Dao isn't that easy to cultivate. However, Xiaofan's will was as firm as steel. He continued reading and comprehending, saber force. The comprehension of the saber. When a saber user's comprehension of the saber reaches a certain level, their aura will become unstoppable and domineering. Just by standing casually, they will give others the feeling of a treasured saber being unsheathed. Furthermore, when the saber force reaches a certain level, one's gaze will be able to shoot out saber chi. This is no small matter. Saber intent. Saber intent corresponds to a swordsman's sword intent. It is the peak of the saber Dao that a saber user pursues all their life. 1 in 10,000. Once one comprehends saber intent, one will become the emperor of the saber. When saber intent is released, the wills of the other saber users in the surroundings will be drawn in, as though they are servants meeting their master, as though they are worshipping a god. If the heavens have feelings, saber intent is emotionless. Once saber intent is released, it will shatter the void and destroy all ghosts and gods. Initial mastery of saber intent. I can turn the surrounding air into saber chi, and with the speed of sound, I can kill all living things as I please. Middle stage saber intent. No matter what it is, grass, wood, bamboo, stone, air, water, everything in the world can be used as a saber, and the speed of the saber exceeds the speed of sound. This realm is also known as saberless. It is the realm where saberless surpasses saberless. Saber intent has reached greater mastery. A natal saber chi has been born in my body, and I can kill with just a thought. It can lock souls from 1,000 miles away, and it can shatter space itself if I kill from 10,000 miles away. Saber intent godly mastery. Life saber chi, mental energy, saber intent, battle will, and will are all brewed to the peak, cutting open the door to the saber realm that's close to nothingness, receiving the blessing of the ancient saber soul, and killing immortals and gods. Huff, the saber intent is too powerful. Once the saber intent is cultivated, it will be able to exterminate the 6 paths. Even ghosts and gods will not be able to predict it. Killing people who are of a higher cultivation level will be as easy as eating and drinking. Xiaofan clicked his tongue. However, it's too difficult and too mysterious. It seems like the saber intent and sword intent are related to the soul. It seems like the stronger one's soul is, the easier it is to comprehend saber intent. Alright, forget it. Start cultivating from the first step. I'll think about it after I cultivate the saber chi. Xiaofan knew that the cultivation of the saber Dao must be done step by step, and he must not be greedy. Saber chi. Saber force. Saber intent. One step at a time. Of course, it wasn't impossible for Xiaofan to cultivate the saber chi. He had to immerse himself in studying it. In the first cocoon of light that appeared from the 7-fragment saber art, there was a shortcut to cultivating the saber chi. Heart saber. Using the heart as a saber, the saber chi will naturally form. The so-called heart saber meant that in order to cultivate the speed of the saber to the peak, one must use the heart as the foundation. With the saber in the heart, one must use the heart to control the speed of the saber. One must know that no matter how fast one's hands and feet were, they were still not as fast as the heart. Let me test my hand speed first. Xiaofan jumped down from the rock. With a single saber in his hand, all the blood vessels and muscles in his body vibrated. His tendons and bones sounded at the same time, and the strength of his physical body was instantly pushed to the limit. Xiao xiao xiao, the single saber in Xiaofan's hand continuously slashed. One breath later, my strength is 80 cauldrons. When I brandished the saber with all my strength and reached the peak speed, I was only able to slash 7 times in one breath. Xiaofan was ashamed. In the next moment, Son of Heaven's power. Boost. Suddenly, Xiaofan's body emitted an incomparably noble aura. It was as if he was the ruler of the world and looked down on the common people. Wang. The single saber in his hand began to vibrate. Strands of tyrannical and brutal saber chi pervaded the air. Xiao xiao xiao, Xiaofan wielded the saber and slashed again. This time, in one breath, he actually exceeded his normal performance and slashed out 21 times. The Emperor's great power dispersed. Even with the boost from the Emperor's great power, I still can't slash out saber chi as I please. To slash out saber chi, I must be able to do it at 1/10 of the speed of sound. In other words, in one breath, I must slash out 34 times. Xiaofan returned to the rock and sat cross-legged. Moreover, I must be able to directly slash out 34 times without the boost from the Emperor's great power. Only then can I be considered to have true ability. Xiaofan thought. In the future, when I cultivate the saber Dao, I will temporarily abandon the Emperor's great power. When the saber Dao is complete, I will then boost the Emperor's great power. At that time, let's see how powerful it is. Time to comprehend the heart saber. Xiaofan opened up his mind. His eyes seemed empty, as if he was thinking but not thinking. The surroundings immediately turned silent. Xiaofan entered the state of enlightenment. He visualized the heart saber according to the first cocoon of light in the 7-fragment saber technique and started to comprehend it. Using the heart as a saber. Using the speed of the heart to replace the speed of the hand. 3 days and 3 nights passed. Xiaofan sat cross-legged like a rock statue, as if he had never moved his body since ancient times. Suddenly, 3 figures appeared in the forest in the distance. They were 3 youths wearing the outer sect disciple robes of Cloud Rain sect. Each of their right arms had an embroidered armband with the words First Peak of the outer sect. This Xiaofan is indeed cultivating. He seems to be cultivating a saber technique. Senior brother Shui told us to keep an eye on this guy. A few days ago, he left the outer sect area alone and came to this deep mountain. I thought he was going to cultivate some unique secret skill. To think that he has been sitting here like a rock for a few days and nights. What is he cultivating? It doesn't seem like he's practicing the saber. I think there's probably something wrong with this guy's head. Maybe he's comprehending the force. Alright, let's keep an eye on him for another day and see what he's up to. If he continues to sit like this, we'll return to the peak first and rest for a few days before coming back. We can't possibly be foolishly guarding a stone statue here, right? Another 3 days and 3 nights passed. The 3 outer sect disciples who were monitoring Xiaofan could not take it anymore and retreated temporarily. On the 7th day of Xiaofan's force comprehension. Shockingly, Xiaofan opened his eyes and an obscure flash flashed across his eyes. Vaguely, that flash contained the intent of the saber. Huff, Xiaofan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. What accompanied it was the sound of his stomach rumbling. His shriveled stomach was protesting. Xiaofan hurriedly took out some steamed buns and jerky from his storage ring and wolfed them down. After eating and drinking his fill, Xiaofan held the saber in his hand. Swish swish swish, Xiaofan waved his right hand a few times and the saber in his hand actually turned illusory. It was almost invisible to the naked eye and only the flash of the saber could be seen. A streak of saber chi immediately condensed on the edge of the saber. With a buzzing sound, it looked like it was about to shoot out of the saber. However, this streak of saber chi did not shoot out. As Xiaofan withdrew his saber, the saber chi finally dimmed and disappeared. Using my heart to control the saber is indeed several times faster than using my hands and feet. Now, I can slash 30 times in a breath. I'm only a step away from 34 times. However, I can only comprehend the heart saber to this extent for now. I need to borrow external force to forcefully increase the speed of the saber to 34 times in a breath and completely cultivate the saber chi. With a thought, Xiaofan carried his saber and walked towards the terrifying waterfall on the peak of the mountain. Gradually, the crazy sound of the water flowing in Xiaofan's ears became louder and louder. It was as if even his heart was gripped by this terrifying sound. Finally, after going around a gorge, Xiaofan arrived at the edge of a cliff with the deafening sound of the water. At the peak of the mountain, there was a waterfall that was tens of feet high. It flowed backwards and flowed into a river at the bottom of the cliff. It was like a flash flood. In all directions, water vapor and mist filled the air. It was faintly discernible and full of artistic conception. The river at the bottom of the cliff surged towards the east like a raging dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It brought up turbulent waves and roared ferociously. This section of the river was tightly sandwiched by the cliffs on both sides. Under the obstruction of many submerged reefs at the bottom of the river, the unyielding torrent struggled violently, forming whirlpools that preyed on people. It was extremely dangerous. Xiaofan stood on the cliff and looked down at the river that was tens of feet below him. He felt a sense of pride in his heart. Who dares to practice martial arts here? I, Xiaofan, dare. The path of cultivation is a struggle against the heavens. If I don't take risks, how can I reach the peak of martial arts? Having made up his mind, Xiaofan carried his saber and followed a rugged path down the cliff. Standing by the river, the water splashed everywhere, drenching Xiaofan's clothes. Xiaofan took a deep breath and leaped onto a protruding rock in the middle of the river. Boom! Suddenly, a turbulent and roaring wave came crashing down like a hammer. It carried the strength of 1,000 soldiers and directly hit Xiaofan's body. Bang! Xiaofan was hit and rolled into the river. Damn it, this wave is so fierce. It has at least a dozen cauldrons of strength. I can't even stand when it comes crashing down on me, Xiaofan gritted his teeth. The indestructible golden body within his body circulated, dispelling the pain caused by this wave that hammered on Xiaofan's body. Xiaofan drank a few mouthfuls of water and grabbed a rock in the river with both hands. He stood up and all the bones in his body exploded. He gathered his strength and with a leap, he once again stood on the protruding rock. Boom! Another wave came crashing down. This wave suddenly rose more than 10 meters high and condensed into the shape of a monster. It mercilessly smashed down on Xiaofan's head. Come on! This time, Xiaofan was prepared. Instead, he puffed out his chest and condensed his physical strength. He brazenly withstood the impact of this wave. However, this time, Xiaofan did not fall down. His body swayed a few times before he finally stood firm. Just like that, Xiaofan stood on the reef, using his body of flesh and blood to withstand the raging waves. He persisted for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Who knew how many raging waves he had withstood, until his physical strength was completely exhausted. No. Not enough. Again. Xiaofan's entire body was powerless. He even knelt down on the rock, his hands and feet trembling. However, he did not immediately jump away. Instead, he remained on the rock. Boom! Another wave came crashing down. Xiaofan immediately stood up and blocked it with his body. Bang! Xiaofan's chest felt as if it had been struck by lightning. A small mouthful of blood spurted out. However, his body was as still as a mountain. He stood there like an iron man and did not fall down. Another incense stick of time passed. Xiaofan finally returned to the shore. He collapsed on the riverbank and greedily breathed in the air. His physical strength had been completely squeezed out. Not a single drop was left. However, at this time, Xiaofan could feel that the speed at which his bones absorbed the medicinal energy was several times faster than usual. The masochistic method of training has completely exhausted my physical strength. The speed at which I refine my marrow has indeed increased. Xiaofan's heart skipped a beat. Good. This is great. After resting for 4 hours, under the nourishment of the indestructible golden body, Xiaofan recovered a small portion of his physical strength. He once again rushed towards the rock in the middle of the river. This was simply a self-destructive method of training. Others would never be like Xiaofan, who risked life and limb to train. Of course, if Xiaofan had not cultivated the indestructible golden body, he would not have dared to torture himself like this. 5 days later. Xiaofan could already endure for 1 hour in the whirlpool of the river. Another 5 days passed. Xiaofan could endure for 4 hours in the whirlpool of the river. On the 11th day, Xiaofan no longer stood on the rock and endured the impact of the huge waves. He began to practice his saber. Boom! An earth-shattering wave swept towards him. The saber in Xiaofan's hand slashed out like lightning. The saber collided with the oncoming wave. The force of the wave was close to 100 cauldrons, causing Xiaofan to lose his grip on the saber and almost drop it. Roar! Xiaofan roared, clenched the saber tightly, and slashed wildly against the wave. On the first day, Xiaofan could only slash 4 times in the wave. Even though he used the heart saber and used his heart to control the speed of the saber, he could only slash 4 times. The resistance of the huge wave seriously affected the speed of Xiaofan's saber. The second day passed. Xiaofan could slash 7 times against the wave. On the third day, 9 times, on the 10th day, 28 times. On the 11th day, Xiaofan stood on the rock, holding the saber in his hand. His hand holding the saber was strangely stable. As steady as a rock. His eyes were as black as the night. Riding the wind and breaking the waves, fighting spirit high. Boom! A wave that was more than 10 meters high, carrying 100 cauldrons of force, crashed down with a loud bang. Shockingly, Xiaofan moved. Xiao! 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 The saber in his hand flashed continuously, only the saber light could be seen, but not the saber. In the next moment, under the power of Xiaofan's saber, the rapidly rolling wave actually stopped for a breath. Furthermore, poo! 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 In this one breath's time, the wave was actually cut into more than 10 pieces by the saber light. After a breath's time, the huge wave that was cut into more than 10 pieces condensed again and rushed towards Xiaofan's body. But Xiaofan stood still, not moving an inch. 30 slashes. In the huge wave, I can slash 30 times in a breath's time, cutting the huge wave like a butcher dismembering an ox. Xiaofan jumped off the rock and stood on the riverbank, holding the saber in his hand. Under the huge resistance, I can still slash 30 times in a breath's time. Hee, then try slashing on flat ground. How many times can I slash in a breath's time? A strange light flashed in Xiaofan's eyes, he was eager to try. P.S. Recommend a Xuanhuan book. This is a new book by an old author, who is also a god-level character. Spirit Luo Ring is a new book by the author. Back then, this Spirit Luo Ring was extremely popular. I was deeply fascinated by it and followed it. Now, he has started a new book. After reading the first few pages, I can't help but be deeply attracted. I am also prepared to follow it one by one. Those who like Xuanhuan can go and collect it. It is indeed a good book. Chapter 57. On the riverbank. Xiaofan held his saber in his hand. After nearly a month of hard training, Xiaofan could already slash 30 times in one breath in the whirlpool of the river. A normal swordsman at the physical body realm would not even be able to hold his saber steadily in the huge waves, let alone practice his saber skills. Xiaofan, on the other hand, relied on the indestructible golden body's abnormal resistance and recovery ability to face the waves head-on like an Iron Man. Now, he could instantly split the huge waves. Great progress. This was definitely not a small matter. At this moment, Xiaofan quietly placed his hand on the hilt of the saber. His body was as still as a rock and his eyes were as calm as water. Suddenly, the whole world seemed to have quietened down. The silence was as cold as ice. Everything around him, the surging river, the rumbling waterfall, seemed to be silent. Gradually, the murderous and distant saber aura, with Xiaofan as the center, spread out, covering 100 zhang. The next moment, Xiaofan moved. Xiao 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 xiao, the saber in Xiaofan's hand seemed to have suddenly disappeared. The saber light flashed continuously, and the sound of wind breaking was endless. Only the saber light could be seen, but not the saber. In Xiaofan's hand, the saber seemed to be as light as a feather, as if it had already merged with Xiaofan's flesh and soul, becoming a part of him. 200 sabers in one breath. Suddenly, Xiaofan roared and raised his right hand. Pooh! A saber aura that was as fast as lightning suddenly slashed out. This saber aura was like the wind and lightning, its speed was more than half the speed of sound, cutting through the air like cutting bamboo grass. Bang! This saber aura just happened to hit a huge wave that was more than 10 meters high, a few acres wide, and looked like a wild beast. The huge wave was smashed into pieces by the saber aura. Countless water droplets splashed in all directions, spraying into the river. The saber aura's momentum did not diminish, and fiercely slashed at the opposite cliff. Puchi. The hard cliff was cut like tofu, leaving a 10 feet long and 1 foot deep mark. Who? Xiaofan spat out a mouthful of turbid air, sheathed his saber, and stood still like a mountain. Practicing saber in the huge waves of the river, fighting against the whirlpool every day, fighting against nature, really gave me my wish to cultivate saber aura. Xiaofan grinned. Now, Xiaofan could slash 200 times in a breath without any resistance. The speed of sound was 340 saber strikes per breath. A bladesman only needed to execute 34 saber strikes in one breath to activate saber chi. And Xiaofan had far surpassed this benchmark. The speed of my saber energy is more than half the speed of sound. The faster the speed of the blade, the greater the power, the sharper the cutting power, and the more terrifying the penetrative and destructive power. To be honest, the strength of my saber chi has already reached 60% of my body's strength, which is close to 50 cauldrons. Xiaofan evaluated himself. As everyone knows, even the most gentle water flow, feathers, and withered grass, under extreme speed, can cut through rocks and steel. Furthermore, Xiaofan's saber chi had a force of 50 ding. A force of 50 cauldrons was blasted out at a speed faster than half the speed of sound. It was indeed invincible, capable of slicing through everything. If my saber speed is a few times faster, or even 10 times faster, then it's not impossible for me to destroy the 6 paths with a single saber chi. Xiaofan was full of confidence. However, now that my physical strength has reached a limit, it will be difficult for me to increase the speed of my saber swing. Forget it, I'll take it one step at a time. Next, I'll comprehend saber force. Xiaofan carried his saber back to the thatched cottage. He rested to his heart's content for the night. On the second day, Xiaofan still went to the reef in the river in the morning to resist the torrent and temper his physical body. He crazily overdrafted his physical strength, digested the medicinal dregs on his bones, and refined his saber chi. In the afternoon, he sat cross-legged on the rock in front of the thatched cottage, comprehending saber force. As the name implied, saber force was a kind of imposing manner. A kind of understanding, love, and pursuit of the saber Tao. After a swordsman cultivated saber force, his entire body was like an unsheathed treasured saber, with an aura that could swallow mountains and rivers, and an unstoppable sharpness. Xiaofan sat quietly to comprehend saber force while repeatedly reading the description of saber force from the first cocoon of light of the 7-fragment saber technique. Moreover, from the mirage-like ancient characters, he captured the faintly discernible saber intent contained within the strokes. Before this, Xiaofan had already successfully comprehended the Son of Heaven's force, the profound concept of withered wood in spring. Thus, it wasn't impossible for Xiaofan to comprehend force. The 3,000 paths lead to the same destination. Using the method of comprehending the Son of Heaven's force to comprehend saber force. 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, the 11th day. Xiaofan sat cross-legged on the rock in front of the thatched cottage like a withered tree. His eyes were closed tightly, and his single saber was placed on his knees. The withered leaves rustled and fluttered as they swirled and fell. Shockingly, the single saber on Xiaofan's knees emitted a light hum. A strange thing happened. The air around Xiaofan's body warped, forming ripples. The fallen leaves that covered the sky seemed to avoid Xiaofan and fell to an area that was about 3 meters away from Xiaofan. Suddenly, Xiaofan's eyes opened wide. The violent force of the saber covered the heavens and the earth as it rose from the ground to the sky and charged into the sky, surging and surging like tidewater. Hua 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 hua, the fallen leaves in all directions fled at the sight of the wind. They were blown into the air by the gusts of strong winds, and they wailed in the air. Within Xiaofan's eyes, there was actually an aura that was as sharp as a blade that swept out explosively. Xiaofan's eyes seemed to turn light gold, fierce and fierce. The saber force flowed, and the saber light overflowed in all directions. There was actually a terrifying feeling that saber intent was about to be born. His entire person had a domineering and unparalleled aura that could sweep through the world. Initial success in the saber force, Xiaofan restrained the aura around him and smiled with satisfaction. In the following days, Xiaofan sat cross-legged on the rock and comprehended the saber force for another 10 days. The saber force in his eyes gradually faded, and his entire person was no longer showing off. It was as if his domineering, fierce, and sharp saber force had been deeply refined by Xiaofan, causing him to have a kind of divine light that was restrained, like a fierce tiger that was sleeping. This kind of aura was even more terrifying than 10 days ago. It was almost like returning to the natural state. Returning to the natural state, the saber force is restrained, without leaving a trace, Xiaofan smiled. Just from the saber force alone, I have already surpassed that half-step true Qi swordsman, Huarong. Huarong's saber force always flowed on the surface of his body, and it gave off the feeling that it would explode at any moment. There was no clever concealment. Suddenly, one night, the dark clouds gathered in the night sky, and the sky was filled with arcs of lightning that were constantly appearing and disappearing like a spider web. It was as if there was a kind of violent power that could destroy the world, and it shook the sky into countless cracks. Kacha, a ray of dazzling white light, like a sharp sword, pierced through the entire sky. Between heaven and earth, it was all silvery white. Immediately after, the Heaven Duke was enraged, and thunder rumbled everywhere. The whole mountain began to tremble, crawl up, and wail. A heavy downpour descended. Accompanied by the flashes of lightning that filled the sky, the deafening thunder that shook the heaven and earth. All the living beings on the mountain where Xiaofan was, tucked their tails between their legs and went into hiding. The thatched cottage that Xiaofan lived in was quickly torn apart by the thunder and lightning. Thunder and lightning? Suddenly, Xiaofan's heart palpitated, and all the saber force in his body rushed to the sky. Poof! The tattered thatched cottage was completely crushed into powder. Xiaofan held a single saber in his hand, and he walked in the night rain and thunder like a demon god. His footsteps were neither fast nor slow, and his eyes were slightly narrowed, as if he was comprehending some profound truth in the thunder and lightning. Shockingly. Gotcha! A ray of lightning snaked like a snake, and it completely tore apart the sky, its trajectory extending endlessly. Xiaofan raised his head to take a look, and a strange light flashed past his eyes. His spirit was greatly shaken. In the next moment, Xiaofan waved the single saber in his hand, and the saber force wandered in the torrential rain, following the trajectory of the lightning. Gradually, the area covered by the saber force became larger and larger. 5 feet, 10 feet, 60 feet, the single saber slashed apart the curtain of rain, and the sound of the wind burst forth. Boom! 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 It was as if 10,000 horses were galloping, shocking the world. The saber force moved horizontally and vertically, and a kind of tragic concept swept through the wilderness. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were fighting on the battlefield, and blood flowed like a river, and corpses filled the field. Suddenly, the single saber in Xiaofan's hand slashed at the void above his head. At the same time, a thunderous sound rolled past, and a sharp ray of lightning was forcibly drawn down by the saber force, fusing into the single saber. In an instant, the single saber radiated electric light in all directions. Xiaofan waved the single saber in his hand, and the speed of the saber was as fast as a meteor, causing his entire body to be wrapped in a ball of electric light. Suddenly, the electric light on the single saber penetrated into Xiaofan's body, causing Xiaofan's entire body to shine brightly, as if he was a thunder god descending to the mortal world. Not long after, the electric light rolled out from Xiaofan's body and fused into the single saber. Xiaofan held the saber with both hands, and with a slash, an earth-shattering rumble resounded. It was as if 1,000 soldiers were easily defeated, and it could topple the mountains and overturn the seas, destroying all ghosts and gods. A ray of saber chi that was mixed with thunder and lightning instantly smashed out. The earth shook. In the next moment, the saber chi had already created a 7 to 8 feet long, 3 to 4 feet deep gully on the ground. Green smoke rose in spirals, and there were continuous electric lights exploding in the gully. After a while, the explosion stopped, but the residual electric lights were still sizzling, and there was a burnt smell in the surroundings. Xiaofan sheathed his saber and stood still, his right hand caressing the saber's body. In this dark night where thunder and lightning intersected, his entire person glowed with a peerless elegance. I have mastered the thunderclap extermination saber. From then on, the saber chi was mixed with the power of thunder and lightning. It was violent and brutal, and its power increased. And my understanding of saber force has been consolidated, and I have actually touched the threshold of saber intent. Xiaofan let out a long roar, like the roar of a tiger or a dragon. The sound shook the valley, and it did not stop for a long time. After that, an entire month passed. Xiaofan gave up on saber training, and he did not go to the river to temper his body. He sat on the rock all day, his eyes half open and half closed. His mind was completely empty, and his mental energy spread out. During this period of seclusion, all kinds of hard training and understanding of saber Dao flowed into Xiaofan's mind like flowing water. Xiaofan summed up his gains and losses. Moreover, he constantly tried to figure out the saber intent contained in the words in the cocoon of light that had exploded from the 7-fragment saber technique. The more he tried to figure out, the more stable and solid his saber force became. Moreover, because Xiaofan was a transmigrator, his soul power was naturally strong. This time, he gave up on saber training, and used his soul to visualize the ancient words that had exploded from the cocoon of light, and he actually had some gains. In his soul, there seemed to be something hidden that was about to break out of the cocoon. Another half a month passed. Xiaofan was still sitting cross-legged, his eyes slightly closed. Leaves swirled around him. Suddenly, Xiaofan opened his eyes. The saber chi in his eyes was like a tide, and divine light surged, shining brightly. The next moment, poof! 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 The air twisted and turned into thin lines of ripples that suddenly cut through everything. The speed was impressively the speed of sound. Countless leaves seemed to be cut by invisible sharp blades, or as if they were cut by the air. Suddenly, one was cut into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, 8 into 16, and finally, they were turned into dust. Xiaohan's saber force did not leak out, and his strength was restrained. He was actually using his soul power to control the air, and at the speed of sound, he cut the leaves in the air. At this point, while Xiaohan's mind was wandering, his mind was clear. His understanding of Saber Dao had entered a whole new level, as if he had opened the door to the peak of Saber Dao. It was extraordinary. I finally comprehended the 1-in-a-million saber intent. Xiaohan's heart was neither happy nor sad. The improvement of his state of mind was indescribable. However, I'm afraid that my current saber intent has not even reached the true initial success stage. The saber intent that I have mastered now uses the soul and soul power as the helmsman to control the air, turning it into saber chi, and at the speed of sound, it can cut everything, including the void. However, I can't control too much air to turn it into saber chi, and my soul and soul power can't keep up. As for the tempering of saber intent, I can only do it step by step. The saber intent is formless, and the tempering is too mysterious and ethereal. But at least I've embarked on this path. 10 days later. On the bank of New River. On the riverbank. Xiaohan held his saber. It's been 4 months since I went into seclusion. I've been training hard every day, and about 20 to 30% of the medicinal power in my bones have been absorbed by my bones, and settled in my bone marrow. My physical strength has increased from 80 ding to 100 ding. It can be considered as the initial success stage of refining marrow. In the whirlpool, I can slash 32 times in a breath. Under normal circumstances, I can slash 230 times in a breath. The speed of the saber chi that is shot out is more than half the speed of sound, and the strength reaches 65 ding. The saber chi is accompanied by thunder and lightning, and its power is enhanced, piercing through everything. The saber aura has reached the realm of returning to the natural state, and the saber light is restrained. The saber intent is gradually approaching the initial success stage. Xiaohan calculated the results of today's seclusion. A wave rose to the sky. Suddenly, Xiaohan's saber flashed. Boom! A saber chi burst out. This saber chi was about 3 meters long, and it shattered the vast sky. It was violent and unparalleled. Moreover, the saber chi contained the light of thunder, and the sound of thunder was loud. The wind howled, and the trees and grass panicked. Pucci, the wave was split into 2 by the saber chi. The cut was smooth, and it flew up and down. For the next 3 days, Xiaohan basically did not cultivate. He let his mind completely relax. Every day, he would chase, hunt, and pick wild fruits in the mountains. It was as if he was on an outing. During this period of time, his tense heartstrings had been completely relaxed because of the bitter cultivation. One evening, Xiaohan set up a rack and used the bonfire to roast fish. Not long after, the oil burst, and the aroma filled the air. Hee. Xiaohan swallowed a mouthful of saliva and rubbed his hands. The taste of this roasted fish must be refreshing. I will return to the sect tomorrow. The seclusion this time has become bland. Although there are still about 2 months before the outer sect ranking competition, my physical strength, saber Dao, and saber intent have temporarily reached a small bottleneck. I can't continue my seclusion anymore. I have to go out for a walk. If there is a chance to go to the Jianghu to gain experience, it would be a good choice. Suddenly, Xiaofan's ears slightly trembled. Immediately, a smile flashed across the corner of his mouth as he said loudly, "All right, stop hiding. Come out. Why are you sneaking around?" In the next moment, in the nearby forest, 3 youths wearing outer sect robes came out. On each of their right armbands were the words, "First Peak of the Outer Court." They were the 3 outer sect disciples that Xue Jianfeng had sent to monitor Xiaofan. However, these 3 people did not watch over Xiaofan day and night in the past 4 months. They came here a few times and found that Xiaofan was sitting cross-legged on the rocks to comprehend the force. Thus, they were very annoyed and always stayed on the mountain to monitor him. After 3 days, they would return to their own mountain. This time, they sneaked into the mountain peak 2 days ago, only to find that Xiaofan didn't cultivate at all. Instead, he was hunting and playing in the mountains, or catching fish and prawns in the river. They didn't know what Xiaofan was up to. At this time, after being exposed by Xiaofan, they did not hide anymore and openly showed themselves. They had a fearless appearance. Even to the extent that they were overbearing and approached Xiaofan step by step. Their faces were surging with killing intent. He. All right. You can eat now. Xiaofan's back was facing the 3 people. Without turning around, he directly grabbed the roasted river fish and tore it apart, shouting loudly, "Good! I, Xiaofan, am indeed talented in cooking. This tastes really good. Enough, Xiaofan, stop playing tricks." One of the 3 outer sect youths who were monitoring Xiaofan flicked his fingernails. "You're hiding here in seclusion, practicing your blade skills, all for the outer sect ranking competition in 2 months, right? Not bad, you can endure the loneliness and cultivate in this barren mountain for a whole 4 months. Indeed, your willpower is extraordinary. I can see that your saber art is not bad, but cramming at the last moment is an idiotic move. We have asked around and found that you have never used a weapon before. This time, you practiced the saber art to have another trump card, right? In the outer sect ranking competition, you made a surprise move and gained some benefits. Yes, but we saw through you. Naturally, we will spread the news of you practicing the saber and expose your trump card." The other outer disciple rolled his eyelids and said in a cold tone, full of arrogance, "No matter how you cultivate, you are not a match for our senior brother Xue. You have offended our senior brother Xue. There is no place for you in this world. But, you are lucky. Before senior brother Xue left for this adventure, he specially told us not to touch you for the time being and let you live for a while longer. Senior brother Xue wants to personally torture you in the outer sect ranking competition. He wants you to beg for death and regret coming to this world. If not for senior brother Xue's warning, the 3 of us would have already punished you. You may not know our methods, but we are very experienced in dealing with lowly people like you." At this moment, Xiaofan had already finished eating the roasted fish. His hands were greasy and he was wiping them on his robe. "Turn around, kneel down and kowtow." An outer sect disciple looked at Xiaofan's back with disgust and roared, "Hey!" At this moment, Xiaofan turned around with grease on his mouth. He burped and stood up. "You are Xue Jianfeng's loyal dogs, right? You were ordered to monitor me." Not bad. Ever since I cultivated the saber art, I have never tested it on a living person. Very good." Suddenly, Xiaofan waved his hand. Clang! 10 steps away from Xiaofan, a saber was stabbed into a rock. At this moment, the handle of the saber trembled, the air vibrated and the saber let out a sound. The next moment, the saber was pulled out from the rock by an invisible force. As if it had a life of its own, Xiaofan jumped in the air and grabbed the saber with his right hand. What? What? What is this? The pupils of the three outer sect disciples suddenly shrank and they looked at Xiaofan in disbelief. With the saber in hand, Xiaofan's aura suddenly expanded and a wave of saber aura soared into the sky. His eyes were like a demon god looking down on the world. The three outer sect disciples could not help but take a step back and their faces suddenly turned as white as paper. One of the outer sect disciples said in fear. Monarch, minister, assistant and envoy, using an invisible intent to control a saber. This is the legendary situation where a saber user comprehended the saber intent. Could it be? Could it be that you have comprehended the saber intent? How? How is this possible? You are just a lowly living target, how could you comprehend the saber intent? The next moment, go! The three outer sect disciples reacted strangely and quickly retreated. One of the disciples burst out with energy and the airflow surged. As he breathed, the pale yellow airflow condensed into a layer of armor on the surface of his body. It looked like fish scales on the outside and there was a round mirror on the chest. It was as solid as a fortress. Earth King light armor. Another disciple took 8 steps in a breath. When he took the 8th step, his body burst out with great potential. In a flash, he had traveled a distance of more than 10 zhang. 8 steps overtaking cicada. The last disciple stomped on the ground and the ground cracked. His whole body soared into the sky and jumped 3 zhang high and 3 zhang away like a toad. Golden Toad Leap. The three outer sect youths each used their trump cards to defend themselves or to flee for their lives. Xiaofan did not move. His hand held the saber hilt and his eyes suddenly became as calm as water. The world was as silent as ice. Suddenly, a murderous saber aura shrouded, Pooh! A saber aura burst out at a speed faster than half the speed of sound. This saber aura was like the roar of an evil dragon. It was extremely ferocious. Wherever it went, the ground instantly cracked and sunk. Crackling electric arcs exploded all over the ground. Pooh! 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 The saber aura first killed the outer sect disciple with the chi flow armor. The sturdy armor exploded like tofu. The saber aura swept past and cut him in half at the waist. Immediately after, the saber aura did not stop. When the outer sect disciple who used the Golden Toad Leap landed on the ground, the saber aura swept across his neck. His head flew into the sky. Finally, the outer sect disciple who had already used the 8 steps overtaking cicada, had already flown more than 10 zhang away. However, the saber aura was like a tarsal bone, crushing towards him. Pooh! The outer sect disciple's legs were cut off. The electric arcs kept exploding at his severed legs, crackling and burning. However, he did not die immediately. Instead, he let out a heart-wrenching scream. Xiaofan walked over step by step. Alright, I should also go back. I'll rush back through the night. Xiaofan walked straight past without any hesitation and quickly disappeared into the night. Ah! Ah! The one-legged youth looked at Xiaofan's back as he disappeared into the night. A trace of doubt flashed across his mind. Why didn't he kill me? Just as this thought came to mind, swish! Chapter 58. He slept soundly until noon the next day, when the sun was high up in the sky. Xiaofan turned over and got out of bed. He seemed to be in high spirits and full of vigor. After washing up, he changed into a new set of outer sect robes and leisurely walked out of the courtyard. After 4 months of hard work, Xiaofan had officially reached the lesser mastery of the marrow-tempering realm. His physical strength had increased, and he had grown taller. Now, Xiaofan's height was close to 1.8 meters, but his body didn't seem to be burly. Instead, he had a graceful and elegant air about him. When he walked slightly, he was like a graceful swan, like a swimming dragon, indescribably elegant and peaceful. Xiaofan's facial features looked like they had been carved out of an ancient sculpture. His eyes occasionally flashed with the light of a blade, which was impervious to all evils. However, most of the time, the light of the blade was hidden deeply, giving people the feeling of a deep well, unfathomable. Just as he was about to walk out of the courtyard area, Xiaofan stopped in his tracks. He saw that outside a courtyard with swaying bamboos, Ah Cho was nodding and bowing, discussing something with a few outer sect disciples. Looking at Ah Cho's expression, he was very anxious and depressed, as if he was begging someone, and the few outer sect disciples all showed a difficult expression, continuously shaking their heads. Xiaofan strained his ears to listen. Ah Cho could be heard continuously trying to curry favor with him. "Dear senior brothers, today is my clan's meeting. I sincerely ask you to do me the honor and follow me down the mountain to participate in the clan meeting. Just help this little brother maintain his image so that this little brother will not become a joke in the clan and be ridiculed by others. Ah Cho, it's not that I don't want to help you, but the outer sect ranking competition is approaching, and I need to temper my martial skills properly. Ah Cho, you better find someone else. Ah Cho, I've just started changing my blood and my cultivation is not good enough. I want to support you, but I can't. Go find someone else. I really can't help you. Ah Cho, I happen to be preparing to go into seclusion. I'm sorry." The few outer sect disciples were all pushing and refusing to agree to Ah Cho's request. One of the outer sect disciples said, "Ah Cho, I see that you have a close relationship with senior brother Xiaofan. Senior brother Xiaofan is a genius and has shown off his abilities. You should go and beg him. If he's willing to go back with you to attend the family meeting, you'll immediately gain face. Most likely to be in the limelight in your family. He's better than everyone else." Ah Cho said with a long face, "Xiaofan." He didn't know where Xiaofan had gone recently. "If Xiaofan was here, I wouldn't have come here to beg all of you senior brothers. The clan meeting is drawing near. I hope that all of you will help me out on account of our relationship as fellow disciples. I will definitely repay you generously in the future." "Enough, Cho, don't be so long-winded here. If you're not going, then you're not going. Generous reward? Ah Cho, you think too highly of yourself, what can you repay? Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Don't let it affect our cultivation. Go play somewhere else." Sigh. Senior brother Ah Cho's connections on this peak are really. Xiaofan shook his head. Now, Xiaofan had heard a few words from the side and understood what was going on. Of course, Xiaofan also knew that the reason why Ah Cho's network was so poor was mostly because of his ugly appearance. Everyone looked down on him and avoided him like a snake or a scorpion, seeing him as an ominous person. "Senior brother Ah Cho." Xiaofanfa shouted and walked over. "Xiaofan." When Ah Cho heard this, he was immediately startled. His slightly hunched back suddenly straightened up. He turned around and his face beamed. "Ha ha ha. Xiaofan. Good brother, you're finally back." The two of them had a bear hug after a long time of separation. Senior brother Xiaofan." Those outer sect disciples who had been rejecting Ah Cho all bowed and greeted Xiaofan awkwardly when they saw him. One of the outer sect disciples rolled his eyes and explained. "Senior brother Xiaofan, I am actually willing to go back with Ah Cho to participate in the clan meeting. But recently, I am preparing to go into seclusion to refine my body. It's fine. I will accompany senior brother Ah Cho back alone." Xiaofan waved his hand indifferently. The outer sect disciples hemmed and hawed a few times before excusing themselves. "Xiaofan, where did you go for seclusion during this period of time? There's no news from you." Xiaofan and Ah Cho walked out of the side courtyard area side by side. Oh. Senior brother Ah Cho, the outer sect ranking competition is approaching. Time doesn't wait for me. I have no choice but to cultivate in seclusion. I forgot to inform you before I left. Xiaofan put his arm around Ah Cho's shoulder and explained. Moreover, Xiaofan could feel that Ah Cho's aura was calm and steady. There was a faint light flowing in his eyes. Between his breath, there was still a medicinal fragrance remaining. Xiaofan smiled. Senior brother Ah Cho, you broke through the organs refinement realm and reached the marrow refinement realm? How is your cultivation of that withered tree treasure record? Ah Cho grinned. Xiaofan, it's all thanks to you buying a batch of organs refinement pills for me. A week ago, I finally took a big step forward and advanced to the marrow refinement realm. As for the withered tree treasure record, take a look. Ah Cho raised his right hand. A faint wood fragrance immediately enshrouded the air. Wood rings appeared on his palm. The air was also covered with a few layers of withered skin. Ha ha ha. Senior brother Ah Cho, you're good. Looks like your withered tree palm cultivation is successful. Congratulations, congratulations. Xiaofan was overjoyed. All of this is thanks to you, brother. Ah Cho said with a chuckle. Oh right, Xiaofan. 3 days later, I will descend the mountain and return to the clan to participate in the clan meeting. At that time, what about you? I'll go back with you. Xiaofan patted his chest and said. I, Xiaofan, have very few friends in the Cloud Rain sect. Senior brother Ah Cho is the only one. Now that senior brother Ah Cho needs help, I don't dare to say that I can provide help in times of need. Xiaofan, you are providing help in times of need. Ah Cho said seriously. Xiaofan, let me tell you. My clan in the secular world does have some power. It can be considered as a large clan. The competition between the disciples in the clan is intense and the internal strife is severe. The clan sends us disciples to the various large sects to cultivate. Firstly, we hope that we will be successful in the martial Dao and strengthen the clan's foundation. Secondly, it is for us to get to know more friends in the large sections. In fact, the clan meeting every year is for the disciples to compete and show off. It's to see who can make more martial Dao friends and be proud of it. It's also the capital to compete for the next clan head position. Forget it. Xiaofan, I'll talk to you in detail when you return to the clan with me a few days later. Oh right, let me tell you. Ling Feiyu is back. Oh. Xiaofan was indifferent. Xiaofan, Ling Feiyu knows that you injured Yang Lei and won the 10,000 true martial coins that he deposited with Yang Lei. Therefore, he is very unhappy. It can even be said that he is furious. Moreover, Ling Feiyu seems to feel that his position in this peak is threatened by you. In short, Xiaofan, if you meet Ling Feiyu, I'm afraid that you will be like ice and charcoal and there will be another fierce battle. Hee hee. The corner of Xiaofan's mouth twitched slightly and said with a smile. Fierce battle? Senior brother Ah Cho, my body is full of energy now and my fighting spirit is high. It's best if that Ling Feiyu doesn't provoke me. If he dares to provoke me, I'll directly cripple him. Ah Cho was frightened by Xiaofan's words and shivered. However, when he raised his head and looked, Xiaofan's eyes were shining brightly. His essence, qi, and spirit had greatly increased compared to a few months ago. It was impossible to see through his depth. Therefore, Cho muttered. Xiaofan, when you cultivate, it's really 1,000 miles in a day. I'm afraid that Ling Feiyu really can't take advantage of you. After all, you and Zhengshan exchanged a blow last time. It's a draw. Immediately, anger appeared on Ah Cho's face. Speaking of Zhengshan, Xiaofan, during the time you were in seclusion, the people from Zhengshan's peak often came to provoke us and fought with our peak's people on the arena. Oh? Xiaofan was stunned. How is the battle situation? Is there a need to ask? Ah Chow's face was filled with grievance. Of course, our peak's people suffered a great loss. Quite a few of our senior martial brothers have been severely injured. There are countless light injuries. Now, our peak is covered in a gloomy fog. Everyone is even in danger. Even the three chiefs are furious and vomiting blood. But there's no choice. Our peak is weak and can't win against them. What about Ling Feiyu and Meng Ran? Xiaofan frowned. These two people are known as the main characters of our peak. Now that they are being bullied by others, how can they tolerate it? Don't mention it. Ah Cho said indignantly. Meng Ran didn't even come back. He has been training outside. Ling Feiyu came back, but he has an indifferent attitude. Everyone said that this time, Ling Feiyu seems to have cultivated some trump card and is preparing to shine in the outer sect ranking competition 2 months later. He wants to suppress everyone with his skills, so he doesn't want to expose his trump card in advance. Trash. Xiao Han frowned and was furious. Being bullied and trampled on, he is actually willing to be bullied and humiliated in order to keep his trump card. This is simply abandoning himself. When a beast is cornered, it knows to fight back. As the saying goes, when a beast is poor, it will gnaw, and when a bird is poor, it will peck. A cowardly coward like Ling Feiyu could forget about cultivating martial arts in this lifetime. Yes, the three chiefs have always treated me well. This time, let me help them vent their anger. Come, senior brother Acho, accompany me to the plaza at the peak to meet the three chiefs. Ling Feiyu was a complete good-for-nothing. He's a fool to call himself a genius. Xiao Han, who are you calling trash? Suddenly, a cold voice rang out behind Xiao Han. This voice contained extreme anger and old grudges. Xiao Han and Ah Cho turned around together. He saw a tall and slender young man walking over in a leisurely manner. He wore a sea blue robe, his face was fair and handsome, and he had an elegant temperament. There was an air of nobility around him. His eyes glowed with an azure blue color, and he looked extremely demonic. Behind him, the air wrinkled and revealed a vast expanse of ocean. There were seagulls gliding on the surface of the ocean, and there was a magnificent scene of sharks fighting for supremacy and whales swallowing elephants. A salty and fishy smell of seawater spread everywhere. It was Ling Feiyu. The main character of this peak, a young genius, was not to be underestimated. At this moment, Ling Feiyu looked deeply at Xiao Han. His sea-like eyes were filled with murderous intent and danger. Behind Ling Feiyu, there was a large group of supporters. There were also many outer sect disciples in this area. All of them stopped and observed quietly. One was the main character of this peak who had been famous for a long time. He comprehended the power of the ocean and was ranked 18th in the previous outer sect ranking competition. After a year of hard cultivation, he was prepared to make a comeback. The other was a living target, but he had recently risen like a comet and was in the limelight. The two of them confronted each other. This made the onlookers feel like they were watching a fight between a dragon and a tiger. Xiao Han, I heard that you've been showing off and stirring up trouble everywhere recently. You've been in the limelight a lot. Ling Feiyu said arrogantly. You're a nobody. Now that you've had a fortuitous encounter, you should cultivate obediently and not show off. However, you've done the opposite. I won't care about other things. However, you should know that you should look at the owner before beating a dog. How dare you injure Yang Lei? Do you know that you're provoking me, Ling Feiyu? Don't think that you can do whatever you want in the outer sect's 10 peaks just because you exchanged a blow with Sheng Shan. I'll give you a chance now. Hand over the 10,000 true martial coins, apologize, and beg for my forgiveness. Otherwise, there won't be a good ending. Oh? There won't be a good ending? Xiao Han flicked his fingernails and sneered. It's impossible for me to spit out what I've swallowed. Moreover, I've already spent the 10,000 true martial coins. Ling Feiyu? Ha 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 ha. Chapter 59. Fortunately, the outer disciples of this peak had seen Xiaofan's arrogance many times before. Amongst them, the most eye-catching time was in the territory of the number one genius of the outer court, Xianfeng. They were at loggerheads, and they almost fought each other on the battlefield. The incident had long been made known to the outer disciples of the 10 peaks, and became the topic of conversation among the outer disciples. Right now, Xiaofan was displaying his arrogance in front of Ling Feiyu. It was not too abrupt. On the contrary, most of the surrounding outer sanctum disciples could not help but think, this was Xiaofan. If Xiaofan wasn't arrogant, would he still be Xiaofan? However, Ling Feiyu had never personally witnessed Xiaofan's overbearing and arrogance. He found it inconceivable. Moreover, he had always been proud of his talent and considered himself to be the top outer disciple of this peak. Now that he heard Xiaofan's words, he felt like he was a sloppy beggar who threatened to defile the daughter of a rich family. What? You want to cripple me? Ling Feiyu's fair face instantly flushed red. The veins on his forehead bulged, and his entire body trembled. The quiet ocean behind him suddenly stirred up a storm. Countless sharks and whales were howling as though they wanted to break free from the ocean and come out to eat people. Ling Feiyu, since you're enjoying the high and mighty glory of this peak and are worshipped and supported by the outer sect disciples of this peak, you're not the only one. Then you should take responsibility. When the forces of the other peaks charged over, you were the first to bear the brunt of the attack, so you had to defend the dignity of your peak. But you just have to hide. Do you want to stay out of trouble? Trash. You are a complete piece of trash. Don't speak now. If you say another word, I'll cripple you. Xiaofan's eyes were like torches as he stared intently at Ling Feiyu. His eyes were full of disdain and mockery. Xiaofan. Ling Feiyu's flushed face turned ghastly pale in an instant. He was so furious that he wished he could eat Xiaofan alive. Get on the stage. We won't rest until one of us dies. Heh. Xiaofan chuckled. Without saying another word, he turned around and walked towards the arena. Xiaofan. Ah Cho followed behind him. With a swing of his robe, Ling Feiyu led a group of followers toward the ring in an overbearing manner. At this moment, Ling Feiyu's heart was filled with killing intent. His original intention of keeping his trump card was completely overturned. He just wanted to kill Xiaofan in the arena to vent his anger. His pride wasn't something that anyone could trample on as they pleased. Furthermore, he could not allow his position on this peak to be threatened. In the arena area, the news of the death match between Xiaofan and Ling Feiyu spread like wildfire. This was a battle between the top outer disciple of this peak and the rising star. Xiaofan kept saying that he wanted to cripple Ling Feiyu, but Ling Feiyu retaliated by saying that he would not rest until he was dead. Too ruthless. This battle was filled with horrifying and extremely dense killing intent. The arena area had already been surrounded by 3 layers of people from the outside of the peak. It was so tight that not even a drop of water could pass through. Everyone stared at the arena with their eyes wide open, not daring to blink for fear of missing something. In the arena, Xiaofan and Ling Feiyu confronted each other. Xiaofan did not move, nor did he accumulate his power. His entire body was like wood or stone, yet as calm as water. On the other hand, the waves behind Ling Feiyu surged violently like raging whales, and his aura rose steadily. Boom! Visible ripples appeared in the air, and the seawater swept in all directions, filling the entire arena. Ocean storms swept out violently, tearing the wind in all directions. Xiaofan was like a lonely boat drifting in the ocean, and he could be destroyed at any moment. Xiaofan, it's too late for you to regret it now. You will pay for what you said. A cruel smile flashed across the corner of Ling Feiyu's mouth. After a few months of bitter cultivation, Ling Feiyu's understanding of the general trend of the sea had improved a little. The force chi could actually evolve into an ocean storm that could devour everything. It was overwhelming and invincible. Xiaofan still looked as calm as an ancient well. Below the arena, many outer sect disciples could not help but break out in cold sweat for Xiaofan. Senior brother Ling Feiyu is indeed talented. His understanding of the general trend of the sea is too solid. The ocean formed by his force chi can be passed off as genuine. This is no small matter. On the other hand, senior brother Xiaohan's aura is completely gone, as if he has been completely suppressed. What's going on? Could it be that senior brother Xiaofan is going to be suppressed by senior brother Ling Feiyu? Senior brother Xiaofan was a ruthless character who did not fall into a disadvantageous position against a strong person like Xing Shan in a single move. What's going on today? However, based on the current situation, senior brother Ling Feiyu's battle strength has probably surpassed Xing Shan. His ranking in this year's outer sect ranking competition can be moved up a little. No. I feel that there is a very special aura on senior brother Xiaohan's body. As for what aura it is, I can't tell either. Wait. Returning to the original state. Why do I feel an aura of returning to the original state from senior brother Xiaohan's body? At this moment, Xiaohan. It's a worthy death for you to die under this move. Ling Feiyu moved. Suddenly, Ling Feiyu raised his right fist, and an endless ocean storm instantly gathered on his fist. His chi surged like a bull, and he was insufferably arrogant. Furthermore, a giant whale seemed to be about to emerge from the ocean storm and devour someone. Ocean whale storm fist. Boom! A giant ocean whale violently charged out. With the support of the ocean storm, the air was shattered like a mirror, and gullies were formed on the ground. The entire arena was filled with dust and smoke. In the blink of an eye, Xiaohan also moved. Boom! A tyrannical and sharp saber aura appeared out of nowhere and soared into the sky. Swish swish swish, Xiaohan's right hand turned into a hand saber and fiercely chopped in the air. In a breath's time, he chopped out 230 hand saber auras. The 230 saber auras stacked together and instantly formed a saber aura that was several zhang long. On this saber aura, there were terrifying electric arcs flashing like thousands of coiling snakes. It was a ghastly sight. The terrifying saber aura sucked all the air in the space in front of it, leaving not a single drop behind. It almost formed a vacuum state without any resistance. Break for me. Xiaohan's aura increased infinitely, and the air in the surroundings lowered. The sound of thunder was heard everywhere, and the wind was howling. Boom! The giant saber aura was like a tyrant, acting arbitrarily and sweeping out. Its speed soared to the limit. The faster the speed, the more terrifying the penetrating power of the saber aura. The entire arena was filled with thunder and lightning. A violent storm. There was a terrifying feeling as if a lightning punishment had descended and a natural disaster was coming. Why is there lightning everywhere? Such a powerful saber aura. The outer sect disciples who were watching the battle all closed their eyes and dodged. The violent wind blew, causing their clothes to flutter. The saber aura seeped out and left cuts on their robes. In the next moment, bang! The giant whale wrapped in the ocean storm was crushed by the saber aura. Ling Feiyu's impregnable momentum of the ocean was instantly sliced into pieces. Kacha kacha kacha, a huge ocean was sliced into thousands of pieces. Pft. 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 All of them were crushed into bubbles. The remaining saber aura did not slow down and continued to roll towards Ling Feiyu. Ling Feiyu was scared out of his wits. He used his ghost-like movement technique and almost instantaneously moved to the left, trying to dodge the saber aura. However, the saber aura was too fast in the vacuum state. Ling Feiyu exerted all his strength, but a small portion of the saber aura still penetrated his body. Bang! The saber aura in Ling Feiyu's body exploded. Pft! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Ling Feiyu's mouth. Ling Feiyu knelt on the ground with green smoke coming out of his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. In the next moment, on the arena, Xiaofan withdrew all the saber aura. With his hands behind his back, he looked at Ling Feiyu. An indescribable arrogance and haughtiness appeared at the corner of his mouth. Just now, Xiaofan did not draw his saber. When Xiaofan wielded a single saber and struck with all his might, the force of a saber aura could reach 65 cauldron. However, if he used his hand to stimulate the saber aura, the force of each saber aura would only be about 15 cauldron. However, it was definitely not a small matter to strike 230 times in one go, stack them together, suck up the air, and instantly crush them. It could easily destroy 1,000 soldiers, cut through everything, and kill people and ghosts. Furthermore, Xiaofan had not added his saber intent. Once he added his saber intent, there would be no suspense in the outcome. Killing Ling Feiyu was as easy as blowing off dust. Even so, although he did not kill Ling Feiyu, the saber aura that entered his body and the thunder intent of the thunderclap extermination saber had greatly destroyed Ling Feiyu's internal organs, meridians, and bones. Now, Ling Feiyu would not die, but he was already half crippled. Even if he could find a healing panacea in the future, he would no longer have any chance to advance to the supreme true energy realm. Ling Feiyu was crippled. Indeed, after cultivating a weapon, my destructive power is several times greater than when I was bare-handed. Xiaofan nodded slightly in his heart. Immediately after, he lightly jumped off the arena. Just as Xiaofan jumped off the arena, Ling Feiyu's head tilted to one side, and he collapsed with a loud bang. He had fainted. The entire arena was silent. Everyone looked at Xiaofan with horrified eyes as though they were looking at a demon god. No one had expected that this so-called fierce battle would end in such a one-sided situation. Ling Feiyu was actually not a match for Xiaofan. He was crippled in one move. Moreover, those with discerning eyes could see that Xiaofan was completely at his wits' end. It was obvious that he had held back his trump card. Defeating an opponent with a higher cultivation level would make people look at him in a different light, but defeating a genius with a higher cultivation level was enough to move people. Let's go, senior brother Ah Cho. Accompany me to the peak to look for the few managers. Xiaofan pulled Ah Cho, who was standing stiffly like a puppet, out of the arena area. Everywhere they passed, all the outer sect disciples automatically made way for them. The thousands of outer sect disciples were completely silent as they watched Xiaofan and Ah Cho leave. After a long time, an outer sect disciple murmured, "From today onwards, our outer sect peak will not be surnamed Ling or Meng, but Xiao. Senior brother Xiaofan is too strong, so strong that there is no limit." TSK, no wonder he dared to challenge Xue Jianfeng. In this year's outer sect ranking competition, senior brother Xiaofan will probably be in the top 3. At the White Jade Plaza on the peak. Xiaofan saw the worried faces of the 3 managers. "Xiaofan, you've come out of seclusion?" The 3 managers immediately surrounded him. They carefully looked at Xiaofan, but the more they looked, the more they couldn't see through Xiaofan. "Xiaofan, if I'm not wrong, your current cultivation is at the initial success stage of marrow refinement. You haven't completely fused the medicinal power of the marrow refinement in your body into your bone marrow. But, your aura? I can't see through it. There seems to be a kind of divine light that is restrained, returning to the realm of simplicity. Isn't this too strong? Xiaofan, how is your cultivation of the Saber Dao? Xiaofan, when did you come out of seclusion? Why didn't you inform us?" The 3 managers started to ask questions at once. Managers, this disciple just returned to the mountain late last night. Once I woke up today, I came to see the three managers, Xiaofan said with a smile. Oh, that's right. I should have come earlier, but I encountered Ling Feiyu. I was delayed for half an hour. Ling Feiyu. When Ling Feiyu was mentioned, the expressions of the three managers suddenly changed. All of them blew their beards and glared at Xiaofan with anger. Back then, the three of us also nurtured Ling Feiyu with great effort. We asked for elixirs and secret manuals for him. However, we didn't expect this kid to forget his roots after he cultivated a little. The people from the other peaks came and wantonly humiliated and trampled on our peak. However, Ling Feiyu refused to help. He kept making excuses and was unwilling to accept the challenge. As a result, many disciples of our peak were injured. One of the managers said angrily. Ingrate. Another manager cursed fiercely. Does he think we don't know what Ling Feiyu is scheming? He just wants to keep a trump card for himself. He wants to use his trump card in this year's outer sect ranking competition. Furthermore, he might directly enter the inner sect this year and completely leave our peak. He's a greedy person. Ha ha ha, three managers, why are you so angry over a cripple? Xiaofan laughed. The three managers looked at Xiaofan in confusion. What cripple? Xiaofan, what do you mean? He. I forgot to tell the three managers that before I came, I exercised my muscles a little and crippled Ling Feiyu, Xiaofan said bitterly. The three managers were stunned and immediately shook their heads. Xiaofan, don't joke around. Ling Feiyu is also a genius. I heard that he had a fortuitous encounter when he went to the ocean to comprehend the force and cultivated an ultimate skill. Three masters. Ah Cho swallowed a mouthful of saliva at the side. Xiaofan has indeed crippled Ling Feiyu. He completely crippled Ling Feiyu with one move. What? The three managers' bodies shook violently. They widened their eyes and looked at Xiaofan without blinking as if they had seen a ghost. Alright, three managers. I heard that the people from Zhengshan's peak often came to cause trouble these few months and even injured many of our people. After crippling Ling Feiyu, I finally exercised my muscles a little. Now, please lead the way. We'll counterattack and fight our way to their door. Aren't the people from that peak very arrogant? This time, I'm going to sweep through everything. I'm going to cripple all of them. Chapter 60. The three chiefs were utterly terrified, as if their souls had flown out of their bodies. Crippled. Xiaofan frowned. What's wrong, three chiefs? Is there anything wrong? According to the rules of the Cloud Rain sect, apart from private duels that are not allowed, once the disciples of the sect enter the arena, their life and death will be determined by fate. As a matter of fact, I was kind and merciful. I only crippled Ling Feiyu and did not kill him on the spot. He kept saying that he would not rest until one of us is dead. Sometimes, I'm a very soft-hearted person. Alright, Xiaofan, you're kind and merciful. One of the chiefs laughed involuntarily. You're still kind and merciful? Xiaofan, I can see that you're so calm and collected right now. It's hard for me to believe that you've crippled a genius before this. It's as if you've just casually swatted a fly to death. TSK, this kind of bearing. Xiaofan, don't worry. We won't punish you, and the higher-ups won't make things difficult for you. You're right. Once you enter the arena, life and death will be disregarded. Our Cloud Rain sect, the Beacon Fire Empire, and even the entire true martial continent revere the martial Tao. The lives of mortals are like grass. There's also competition and internal strife between martial artists. Ling Feiyu was crippled by you because his skills were not as good as yours. There's nothing to complain about. You didn't kill him because of your kindness. However, it is also because people like him will never be able to pose any threat to you in eternity. You disdain to kill him. You crippled Ling Feiyu with a single move. Xiaofan, what kind of monster are you? How did you cultivate? Xiaofan rubbed his nose and smiled pretentiously. 3 chiefs, there's no need to make such a fuss, right? Me? I'm just a person with mediocre aptitude. As a matter of fact, it's not that I'm powerful, but Ling Feiyu is too weak. 3 chiefs, think about it. What kind of genius is Ling Feiyu? It's just that he's the cream of the crop among the thousands of outer disciples on our peak. In the entire Cloud Rain sect's outer sect, he would only be ranked 18th, which was insignificant. Moreover, this was only our Cloud Rain sect. The population of the 5 major sects in the Beacon Fire Empire was over 10 billion. Ling Feiyu aside, even Xue Jianfeng, who was known as the #1 outer sect disciple of Cloud Rain sect, was merely a drop in the ocean in the Beacon Fire Empire. Apart from the Beacon Fire Empire, the southern region still has 6 great empires, 27 mid-sized countries, and countless small countries. What's the population? Incalculable. Besides that, there was also the northern region, the western region, the eastern region, the central region. The nearly limitless territories were filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers, and geniuses. The so-called geniuses were probably as numerous as the sands of eternity. Just thinking about it makes this disciple's scalp tingle. Thus, crippling Ling Feiyu in one move is really not worth mentioning. Xiaohan's bullsh *T was partly to lessen the shock the 3 leaders had towards him. Secondly, he was telling the truth. The Jinwu continent was vast and boundless, with a population in the trillions. Xiaofan did not dare to call himself a genius. Furthermore, those beneath the realm of Jinqi were all ants. What was there to be proud of? Sigh. Xiaofan. You have a big heart. As the saying goes, the bigger your heart, the bigger your future achievements. Compared to you, the 3 of us are really like frogs at the bottom of a well. One of the leaders sighed. Immediately, his eyes lit up. Xiaofan, did you just say that you want to fight your way to their door? Yes. 3 leaders, this disciple heard from senior brother Ah Cho that during this period of time, our peak has suffered a lot of vexation and no one stood up for us. Now that this disciple has returned and heard about this matter, I am very unhappy and want to help the 3 leaders vent their anger. After all, the 3 leaders have treated this disciple, Xiaofan, with kindness and kindness. The 3 leaders are feeling sullen and unhappy, and this disciple is also panicking. Xiaofan licked his lips and said, 3 leaders, what should we do now? This disciple's intention is that the 3 leaders will take the lead. We will block the door and fight our way to their doorstep. We will definitely take revenge for the smallest grievance. As long as we are on the stage, this disciple will let go of my hands and feet. If 1 comes, I will knock over 1. If 2 comes, I will knock over a pair. No matter how many people come up, this disciple will take care of them all. We will beat them until they are convinced. We will make them not dare to come and bark at our peak in the future. The 3 leaders looked at each other, and their eyes were gradually filled with excitement. Motherf * cur. Suddenly, a manager cursed and said in a stern voice. During this period of time, we have been bullied badly enough. It is a pity that our sect has fallen and we can only swallow our anger and humiliation. We are suffocated to death. Good. Xiaofan. Since you are back, let's fight our way to their door. Block them. Let's vent our anger to our heart's content. Fight. Let's go. The other 2 leaders shouted in unison. Only they are allowed to fight their way to our door, but we are not allowed to retaliate? This time, we will also fight our way to their doorstep. Ruthlessly humiliate them. The 3 leaders felt their blood boiling. Immediately, they directly brought Xiaofan down the mountain. Ah Cho also felt a surge of heat in his body and could not control himself. He immediately followed behind Xiaofan and the rest. The four of them walked down the mountain. When they passed by the arena area, the thousands of outer sect disciples still gathered and did not disperse. They stayed on the spot and whispered to each other, discussing the power of Xiaohan's blade. At this moment, when the outer disciples saw Xiaofan, Cho, and the three leaders of their own peak walking over aggressively, they were all stunned. Xiaohan's footsteps slightly stopped and he said loudly, "Everyone, these few months, the bastards from Zhengshan's peak often came to provoke us and even injured many of our people. This time, we will also fight our way to their doorstep. Those who are willing to go with me, Xiaofan, follow behind." There was silence all around. The next moment, boom! The entire arena area was in an uproar. Thousands of outer sect disciples completely roared with passion. "Good! Senior brother Xiaofan will stand up for us, let's fight back. Follow senior brother Xiaofan. Senior brother Xiaofan is peerless, sweeping away thousands of soldiers. The bastards from that peak are all not senior brother Xiaohan's match. Fight! Cripple them. Let's see if they still dare to come over and behave atrociously. Go! Those who are courageous, all follow senior brother Xiaofan. Those who don't dare to go, scram home and drink milk." For a moment, thousands of outer sect disciples, regardless of male or female, all had flushed red faces and were so excited that their bodies trembled. One by one, they lined up behind Xiaofan and rushed down the mountain like a flood. Their momentum was vast and majestic. Thousands of people climbed the mountain ridges and rushed towards the peak where Zhengshan was at. Suddenly, a lush green mountain peak appeared in Xiaohan's vision. Halfway up the mountain, between the trees, there was a building that looked like a pagoda. It was ancient and majestic. It was the martial skill pavilion. Xiaohan's footsteps stopped. "Xiaofan, after passing through the martial skill pavilion, we will directly reach the peak where Zhengshan is at." One of the leaders immediately stepped forward and said, "Heh." Xiaohan's mouth twitched and a strange light flashed in his eyes as he suddenly said, "Three leaders, please wait at the foot of the mountain. There is a small personal grudge between this disciple and Deacon Leng of the martial skill pavilion." With that, Xiaofan strode up the mountain. "Huh? What's going on? Let's follow and take a look." The three leaders immediately exchanged glances. At the White Jade Plaza outside the martial skill pavilion, people came and went, and there was an endless stream of outer sanctum disciples from the various peaks going in and out, choosing or returning martial skill secret manuals. Deacon Leng. Disciple Xiaofan requests an audience. Xiaofan stood on the White Jade Plaza and shouted with a loud voice. "Who? So impudent? Barking in the martial skill pavilion?" Immediately, many outer sect disciples stopped their footsteps and stopped to watch. Some of the outer disciples recognized Xiaofan and whispered to him, "Oh, it's Xiaofan. I heard that this kid was born a living target, but his luck is like a rainbow and he has many fortuitous encounters. Recently, he has been in the limelight a lot. Furthermore, he dared to challenge the number one outer sect disciple, senior brother Shuejianfeng. He is a madman and a ruthless character. However, what is wrong with him today? He actually ran to the martial skill pavilion and made a ruckus. Let's just watch the show. Don't provoke this Xiaofan. We can't afford to offend this person." In the next moment, a green-robed old man with an eagle's eyes walked out with a ferocious glint in his eyes. Who else could it be but Deacon Leng? Xiaofan. It's you." The corner of Deacon Leng's eyes twitched as he looked at Xiaofan. "Xiaofan, you're too impudent. Why are you making a ruckus here? You want to see me? What do you have to say? I heard that you recently beat up Yang Lei. You have guts, but you won't be able to get past Feiyu. Let's see how long you can be smug for. You're just a nobody. How dare you jump around in front of me? You're courting death. Deacon Leng clearly did not know that Xiaofan had already crippled Ling Feiyu. Deacon Leng, it's not up to you to decide how long I can be smug. However, Deacon Leng gave me a piece of parchment and asked me to comprehend the mysteries within it. This matter is worth pondering. Later on, I heard that Yang Lei bribed Deacon Leng. So, Deacon Leng colluded with Yang Lei to trick me, right? I wonder what benefits Deacon Leng received for him to do such a dereliction of duty. Back then, Xiaofan was indeed tricked by Deacon Leng. If it wasn't for the Son of Heaven's divine fist's traces on that piece of parchment, the first martial technique that Xiaofan chose for free when he entered the outer sect would have been for naught. Passing by the martial skill chamber today, Xiaofan recalled this old matter. When he recalled how Deacon Leng coerced and bribed him back then, forcing that piece of parchment that he viewed as trash, he could not help but want to mock Deacon Leng to his face. He vented the resentment in his heart. Xiaofan was not afraid of offending Deacon Leng now. In Cloud Rain sect, as long as one was not at the true Qi realm, they would not receive much attention and did not have much power in their hands. Xiaofan's words were said with great fanfare, causing the outer sect disciples who were watching the show to hear every single word. Everyone had a strange expression on their faces and some even whispered. So, Deacon Leng is using his position for personal gain. What kind of martial technique can that piece of parchment produce? It'll be great if he doesn't go berserk. Xiaofan. Deacon Leng was enraged. His aura soared into the sky, revealing his ferocious face and murderous intent. How dare you slander my reputation? You're like a mad dog biting randomly. Do you really think that I don't dare to teach you a lesson? Deacon Leng took a step towards Xiaofan. His aura surged like the wind and clouds around him. He seemed to be growing taller and a domineering and sharp saber aura surged, causing the surrounding air to ripple like flowing water. Deacon Leng was obviously a bladesman who cultivated in saber techniques. This time, he released his saber aura in an attempt to suppress Xiaofan. Bladesman? Xiaofan's heart skipped a beat. Soon after, he laughed loudly. Ha ha ha. Good, very good. Deacon Leng, I'm here today to thank you for your guidance. Ha ha ha. Shockingly. A ferocious and ruthless saber aura like an evil dragon rushed out from Xiaofan's body. It swept through everything like a whirlwind, scattering the clouds and swallowing the mountains and rivers. Xiaofan was a bladesman who had comprehended the saber intent. Against ordinary bladesmen, he could suppress them like a master and his servant. If Deacon Leng did not release his saber aura recklessly and tried to suppress Xiaofan, he would be fine. However, as soon as he released his saber aura, he was like a rebel in front of Xiaofan's saber aura. In an instant, Deacon Leng's saber aura suddenly curled up and went back into his body. This time, it was like a counterattack, causing Deacon Leng's expression to change drastically. Pfff. Deacon Leng spurted out a mouthful of blood. His legs were weak and he could not control his body. Suddenly, he knelt down in front of Xiaofan. Deacon Leng? Why are you kneeling to me? I can't afford it. I can't afford it. Oh. Deacon Leng must be feeling guilty because he accepted a bribe that day, right? Alright, I forgive Deacon Leng. Who doesn't make mistakes? Xiaofan smiled innocently. He withdrew his saber aura and strode through the martial skill pavilion. The surroundings were filled with silence. P.S. Stay up late to update, please recommend me. In addition, I recommend a very nice Xuanhuan book. It is the same type as the Demon God. Everyone can go and collect it. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.